Chapter 1394. On the afternoon of the second day, at the end of the plain, in front of them was a vast primeval forest. Charlotte saw a giant tree at the edge of the forest. Its diameter was at least 30 meters. Its canopy was like a giant umbrella, covering an area of thousands of square meters. Moss and vines crawled all over the trunk, making the giant tree look even more bloated and massive. Xiaolei had never seen such a huge tree before, but trees like this were everywhere in the forest, and it wasn't even the biggest one. This forest was probably millions of years old. Xiaolei guessed in his heart, "This is the Forest of Rest, a place where humans are forbidden." Lan Jie said, "Are you sure you want to go in? If you regret it now, you can still go back." "Regret?" Charlotte smiled. "I won't regret it. You might die in there. No one can come out alive." Charlotte said, "Didn't you come out alive?" Lan Jie said, "I'm different from you. I'm an Ahemus. This is our land." "All right, lead the way." Charlotte didn't even think about going back. Entering the Forest of Rest was indeed dangerous, and there was even a possibility of dying inside, but he wasn't afraid. In addition, he had a partner that even Lan Jie didn't know about, and that was the blue dragon sunflower, so he still had a certain amount of confidence. "All right, come with me." Lan Jie led the way into the Forest of Rest. "But I have to tell you, if you die, don't expect me to help you collect your corpse." Charlotte just smiled. He followed Lan Jie into the forest. The moment he entered the forest, Charlotte had a very strange feeling. It was as if he had entered another world. There seemed to be an invisible barrier at the edge of the forest, and he had just passed through it. Suddenly, the power of the brand awakened, and it recovered little by little. The awakening of the power of the brand shocked Charlotte. He couldn't help but stop and carefully observe the sudden change in his body. "What are you standing there for? Do you regret it?" Lan Jie looked back at Charlotte. Charlotte suddenly retreated. "You?" Lan Jie suddenly laughed. "Coward, you're just SOSO. Go back. You can still go back now. Go back to the side of your 8 little girls and live your romantic life." Charlotte seemed to not hear her. His expression was very serious, but his eyes were filled with surprise and joy. If the Forest of Rest was not affected by the blue moon, and he could use the power of the brand normally, then entering and exiting the Forest of Rest would not be a difficult matter. Moreover, the awakening of the brand meant the return of his ability, and the return of his ability would help him find the answer. However, the power of the brand had been awakened, and the power of his ability. The power of the brand meant that the blue moon in the sky had. After this attempt, he had already obtained a conclusion. The Forest of Rest had its own energy field. It was not restricted by the blue moon in the sky. Charlotte was surprised. Could it be because of the energy tree? Or is it because there's a large amount of spirit ores here, and the energy released by the spirit ores formed a natural energy field that counteracts the blue moon's energy field? "Coward!" Lan Jie looked at Charlotte with disdain, then turned and left. Charlotte chased after her. "Wait for me. Why did you come in again? Aren't you a bit too fickle?" Lan Jie's mouth was unforgiving. Charlotte smiled. "I didn't want to go back because I was afraid. I just wanted to test my feelings." "Test your feelings?" Lan Jie looked at Charlotte with a strange expression. Charlotte said, "Yes, the moment you entered the Forest of Rest, did you feel strange, like you were suddenly squeezed into a soap bubble?" "Was a soap bubble? Let me change the analogy, like a saliva bubble. Do you feel that?" Charlotte looked at Lan Jie with anticipation. "You're crazy." Lan Jie looked away and continued to walk forward. Charlotte chased after her. "Don't be like that. Tell me. This is very important to me." Lan Jie said, "There's no feeling of being squeezed into a soap bubble or saliva bubble. There's only a feeling of returning home, very intimate." Charlotte still had a lot of questions in his heart, but he gave up when the words were at the tip of his tongue. After all, Lan Jie was not a person whose body had undergone a complete evolution, and her body did not even have the power of the brand. So how could she feel the feeling of being squeezed into the energy field? The intimate feeling she spoke of was just a normal feeling of returning home after leaving home. There was nothing to be curious about. As he walked deeper, Charlotte noticed that the power of the brand in his body was getting weaker and weaker due to the blue moon. And after about 2 kilometers, it completely disappeared, and his power of the brand had completely returned, activating all the abilities in his body. X-ray, microvision, telescopic vision, scanning, and hearing better than a hunting dog. The return of these abilities allowed him to control the environment around him to the extreme. He could see an insect crawling on a tree trunk thousands of meters away, and he could also hear the chirping of birds hundreds of meters away. He could see the pores on Longier's skin, as well as the liquid contained in those pores. The liquid was obviously not sweat, but the substance that formed the mucous membrane. This inadvertent microvision and discovery made him suddenly understand why the Ahemus did not wear underwear. Their pores would release the substance that formed the mucous membrane, and then form the mucous membrane if they wore underwear. The image of Longier angrily scratching at a certain part of the cloth stuck to a certain part of her body appeared in his mind. That image was unbearable to look at. Along the way, Charlotte also saw a lot of human skeletons. Their corpses no longer had flesh and tissue, leaving only white bones. Some of the bones were even moldy and had moss growing on them. Their personal belongings were also almost rotten, but some of them could still be identified from the year of production and the manufacturer. Charlotte found a leather bag next to one of the skeletons. The leather bag was buried in the soil, and only the strap was exposed. He saw the strap of the leather bag, and then he used his X-ray vision on the ground to find a leather bag in the soil. When he grabbed the strap and tried to pull the bag out, the strap broke. He used a military knife to pull the bag out. The leather bag in the soil was in good condition because it was not in direct contact with the air. The zipper was made of aluminum alloy, so it was not rusty. He shook off the soil on the zipper, and the zipper could still be opened. After opening the bag, he found a camera, a notebook, a pen, and some small items, such as a pruning knife and a leather wallet. The wallet was bulging, and it looked like there were a lot of things inside. Charlotte saw the wallet open, and he saw the things inside. There was an ID card, and it had the information of the deceased, citizen of District 1, Cantor, born on August 3rd, 1418, address, Pacific Street, Building 23, Room 78. The ID card also had some information such as blood type, height, and weight, but Charlotte was not interested in those trivial information. What interested him was the birth date of this citizen named Cantor. He thought to himself, this person named Cantor was born in the year 1018 of the new era. What era is that? The era of the Holy Thunder? Or the era after the death of the Holy Thunder? Or the era before the Holy Thunder? There were 3 possibilities, and the last one was the least likely. The first and second possibilities were the most likely, but no matter which one was the correct answer. It was this seemingly simple question that stumped Charlotte. He held Cantor's ID card and asked Longier, "Have you seen this before?" Longier glanced at it. "No, it must be something very old. Humans today don't know how to use these things. 1018 of the new era. What era is that?" Charlotte asked again. Longier's lips curled into a disdainful smile. 1018 of the new era. That's the concept of time you humans set yourself. We don't have any era. We Ahemus have no concept of time. In the Ahemus view, time doesn't exist. We believe in reincarnation. You don't believe in time, but reincarnation? What reincarnation? Charlotte's interest was instantly piqued. Longier said, "You die here, and you're reborn somewhere else." Charlotte was stunned. "What does that mean?" Longier said, "Go and ask the elders in our clan. If they can accept you, then go and ask them. I can't answer your question because I don't know either." Charlotte nodded. "I'll go back and ask." Longier said, "But you have to be careful. The people in our tribe don't like you humans. I heard from the elders in our tribe that the humans during the Holy Thunder era were very despicable. They dug up minerals and black oil everywhere, destroying the environment. Your cities grew one after another like mushrooms after a rain. However, the sky was no longer blue, and the rivers were no longer clear. But now you guys are almost finished. Everything is normal." Charlotte smiled bitterly. "There are good people too. Not everyone is bad. For example, I'm a good person. I won't hurt you. I'll even save you when you're in danger. Right? Langer said, no, I'm not targeting you, nor am I targeting you humans. You guys are actually quite pitiful. You guys think you've conquered this world, but now you've become food for the Blue Moon people. You're being hunted like animals. However, what I don't understand is that you guys are already at the brink of extinction, yet you guys can't unite to fight against the Blue Moon people. Instead, you guys are killing each other, racking your brains to seek benefits for yourself, and enjoying your last moments of madness. I know you want to solve some mysteries and become the hero that saves this world, but I think you're wasting your effort. Charlotte couldn't dislike Langer because she said such things, because what she said was the truth. I don't want to be some hero. I just want to solve some of the questions in my heart, find the answers, and then go home, Charlotte said. Where is your home? Very far away. Charlotte continued to look through the things in the wallet. Langer's lips curled up. She was obviously not satisfied with the obvious lie that Charlotte had given. Charlotte found a few coins in the wallet, but because they were too old, the colors, patterns, and numbers on the coins had all disappeared. What was left was just a piece of paper that would rot with a touch. The coins were full of bacteria. Even in the soil, they would reproduce and destroy the parasitic objects. Are you leaving or not? What's so interesting about a dead person's things? Langer said, let's go. Charlotte saw that the wallet and ID were placed on Cantor's body, and then he took the camera and notebook from the wallet. As he walked, he resisted the notebook. Adventurers loved to write adventure diaries, and this Cantor was no exception. Opening the notebook, Charlotte saw the contents, but his heart sank because the words could no longer be read. Chapter 1395. After all, it was very old, and it was normal for the ink to deteriorate and not be able to display the original content. However, Charlotte still had his own way to get what he wanted. When he was walking, he activated the microvision ability in his eyes and used the faint scratches left on the paper to read the words. Intermittently, he really did manage to read some words. His brain sorted out the words that were restored from the scratches, and he got the closest to the original. We were chased by blue-black barbarians. They were as agile as apes. We shot them with our guns, but they did not die. Their bodies have the ability to heal quickly. With that in his mind, Charlotte could not help but glance at Langer's perky butt. Wasn't Cantor describing the Ahemus? The words cast a shadow over his trip to the Ahemus tribe. If the Ahemus hated humans, he would not be welcome there. He might even be treated as an enemy. We were surrounded, and there was no hope. I know what my ending was, but I do not regret it. Because we successfully reached the Valley of Rest, we saw the spiritual mine, and it was filled with a shocking amount of spiritual mine. I believe that even though the holy thunder is gone, as long as we can make good use of the spiritual mine, we have hope to defeat the Blue Moon people and rebuild our civilization. Spiritual mine. They had found a spiritual mine, and it was a shocking amount of spiritual mine. Was that why the Ahemus were chasing them? He did not know, but when Charlotte tried to find clues in the notebook, he could not find any. Cantor did not say where the Valley of Rest was, and he did not give a detailed description of the place. It gave people the impression that they had finally reached the place after going through a lot of hardships, but their luck suddenly changed. Cantor did not have the chance to write down the detailed notes, let alone draw an accurate map. My best friend is also dead. He was the strongest warrior among us. I know my death is near. I can even smell the scent of death. I want to bury my notebook in the ground and hope someone will find it. If you are the man, you can take the money in the purse. But I have one request, and that is to tell my wife and daughter that I love them. My wife is Mina, and my daughter is Rosa Cantor. If they're no longer in this world, please help me offer a bouquet of flowers in front of their graves. This was the final content. Charlotte had been very excited when he had used his microscopic vision ability to detoxify the contents of the notebook, but now he was a little disappointed. If only Cantor could describe Rest Valley in detail and draw a map, it would be great. In this situation, he was almost certain that there was a spirit mine in the Forest of Peace, but he didn't know where it was. The total area of this forest was almost the size of 2 Earths. It was such a big place. If they were to search one by one, How long would it take? Charlotte saw that the notebook was placed in the equipment bag. It was Cantor's belongings. Although he didn't take the money from Cantor's bag, he still received a reward from Cantor, which was the clue to the spirit mine. If there was a chance in the future, he would fulfill Cantor's last wish. It was obviously impossible to convey Cantor's love to his wife and daughter, but it was possible to find their graves and offer them a bouquet of flowers. Charlotte started to fiddle with Cantor's camera again, but it was no longer working. The lens was already ruined, and the surface was full of holes. The battery could no longer store electricity, so it looked like it was completely useless. He wanted to find some clues from the camera, but after fiddling with it for a while, he gave up and put the camera back into his equipment bag. Roar! Suddenly, the sound of a beast roaring came from the forest. When he heard the sound, Charlotte's first thought was that it was a blue dragon, but when he heard it a second time, he denied this thought. It wasn't a blue dragon. Crack! Crack! The sound of branches being broken came from the forest, and the sound spread quickly in this direction. Lan Ji-er's expression suddenly became nervous. It's Taisha. Charlotte was also nervous. Taisha, what is that? It's a beast second only to the blue dragon. It quickly climb up the tree. Lan Ji-er turned around and ran toward the giant tree. Before she reached the foot of the giant tree, she jumped from the ground. As she fell, she slapped her palms on the tree trunk and then stuck to it like a fly on a flyboard. Charlotte didn't have the ability to do that. He threw away the heavy equipment bag and only carried the metal bow and arrow quiver as he ran towards the giant tree. It was a giant tree with a diameter of tens of meters, so it was impossible to climb it normally. However, Charlotte had his own way. Whoosh! Charlotte also jumped from the ground, and his body instantly rose to a height of 4 meters. When he was about to fall, his right hand suddenly reached forward and grabbed Lan Ji-er's ankle. Ah! Lan Ji-er screamed. Her arm that was stuck to the tree was suddenly pulled straight by gravity. One of her legs was also pulled straight, and the drooping of her pants exposed a delicate blue and black striped skin. It was her blue and black ball. Are you a man? Lan Ji-er roared at Charlotte. You almost made me fall. Charlotte wasn't in the mood to listen to her. He shifted his gaze in another direction. Crack! Crack! The tree trunk shook, and the sound of crashing and snapping was very close. Lan Ji-er also realized something and hurriedly climbed up. She had a tail on her body, so it was very difficult for her to climb, but she still braced herself and climbed up. When Lan Ji-er climbed up a branch that was 10 meters above the ground, a black behemoth crashed into 2 small trees and rushed to their feet. It was a beast that looked like an elephant. It had extremely thick skin and extremely thick limbs. It was almost 3 meters tall, but it didn't have a long nose like an elephant. However, it had one thing that an elephant didn't have, and that was a bloody mouth full of sharp teeth. This was the Taisha, the beast of the Forest of Rest. Roar! The Taisha stood up, opened its mouth, and wanted to swallow Charlotte, who was at the bottom. Charlotte climbed up the branch in time. Although it was a branch, its diameter was at least 1 meter, and it was as stable as a bridge. The Taisha's first mouth fell on empty air, but the breath that came out of its mouth still rolled up Charlotte. It was an indescribable stench, and Charlotte almost fainted. Quickly close your mouth and nose. Its breath is poisonous. Lan Ji-er roared at Charlotte. She couldn't wait to immediately reach out and cover Charlotte's mouth and nose. She was actually very concerned about him, but her mouth was a bit fierce. The moment the Taisha's breath rolled up, Charlotte's head was a little dizzy, but he was, after all, a superhuman whose body had entered a comprehensive evolution, and his body had a strong immunity. He quickly returned to normal. Roar! The Taisha jumped, but it was too heavy. It only jumped a few dozen centimeters high, and when it landed on the ground, the whole ground shook. Climb up again. It's not safe here. Lan Ji-er continued to climb. Charlotte followed her and climbed higher, and finally stopped about 20 meters from the ground. The Taisha looked at its prey on the tree, and its heart was unwilling. It squatted on the ground, and its two blood-red eyes were like lights shining on Charlotte and Longier on the tree. Longier frowned. This guy is very patient. In the past, a friend of mine met a Tai Shah. She hid on a tree, and the Tai Shah guarded that tree for 7 days and 7 nights. Fortunately, we found her and drove away the Tai Shah, or she would have starved to death on the tree. Just as she finished speaking, the Tai Shah, who was squatting on the ground, suddenly stood up, retreated about 20 meters, and then ran wildly, slamming into the tree trunk. Boom! In the dull sound of the impact, the whole tree shook violently, and leaves fell like raindrops. Charlotte and Longier, who were on the branch, grabbed the branch hard to prevent themselves from falling. The Tai Shah continued to retreat, and it seemed that it was ready to attack again. Charlotte said with a smile, "It seems that what you said is not correct. This guy has lost his patience. I think it wants to eat you the most. After all, your flesh is more tender, and you have fewer bones." "I have fewer bones? What do you mean?" "Nothing." Charlotte took off the metal bow on his shoulder and then pulled out a metal arrow from the quiver. Longier suddenly looked down at her towering chest and suddenly understood something. Her face suddenly turned red. "Damn pervert. You still have the mood to joke at this time. Quickly find a way to kill it." Charlotte put the arrow on the bowstring and then pulled the bow to the fullest. The metal arrow was aimed at the Tai Shah's head. Roar! The Tai Shah rushed up again. It did not put Charlotte's bow an arrow in its eyes at all. It seemed that in its eyes, it was just a toy to tickle it. Whoosh! A metal arrow flew out from the bowstring, drawing a reddish trajectory in the air. Gotcha! The metal arrow fiercely pierced into the Tai Shah's head. Its body suddenly lost all its strength, and it slid to the ground. Then, under the action of inertia, it rushed over, slammed into the tree trunk, and finally stopped. The Tai Shah's blood-red eyes were wide open. Until its death, it could not believe that it was actually shot to death by a toy to tickle it. Longier looked at Charlotte, stunned. Her small mouth was open, but she could not say anything. In fact, Charlotte was also very surprised because it was not the first time he used this metal bow to kill an enemy. But this time it was different. He actually felt that this bow, which required more than 1,000 pounds of strength to draw, was too soft and too easy to draw. The reason was not difficult to find. In the past, when he used the metal bow to kill enemies, it was in the environment of the Blue Moon. But now, he was in the Forest of Peace, and there were no restrictions. With the help of the branding power, the bow that was easy to use in the past was naturally soft. After understanding the reason, Charlotte was no longer surprised. He secretly said in his heart, "If there is a chance, I will find some materials to upgrade my bow. Although it can still kill enemies, it will not be able to display its full strength. If I encounter a stronger blue dragon, it might still be a little difficult." "Hey!" Longier put one of her hands on Charlotte's shoulder. Charlotte looked back at her. "What?" Longier's eyes emitted a scorching light. "Where did you get so much strength?" I'm afraid that even the warriors of our tribe do not have such strength. Our archers need to shoot at least 10 arrows to kill a Tai Shah, but you killed it with one sword, and it was an arrow that pierced through its hard skull." Charlotte shook his head and did not say anything. "What do you mean by shaking your head?" Charlotte shrugged. "I don't know. I'm also looking for the answer." "Say it again." Longier's almond-shaped eyes widened. Charlotte had an innocent expression. "I really don't know." "Go to hell." Longier suddenly raised her leg and kicked Charlotte's, but Charlotte fell from the tree and landed on the Tai Shah's corpse. Longier put her hands on her waist. "Let's see if you still dare to lie to me, huh?" Charlotte looked up at her. "Your zipper is open." Longier hurriedly reached out to cover the area between her legs, but after covering it, she realized that her pants were not zipped at all. "Ha!" Charlotte laughed. "Go to hell, pervert." Longier's voice echoed in the forest. Chapter 1396. The dead Tai Shah weighed at least 7 to 8 tons. It was a truly huge creature. Longier he said that it was weaker than the blue dragon, probably because it didn't have the scales that the blue dragon had, which were comparable to armor, so its defense was weaker. If it was purely based on the bite force and impact of its mouth, it wasn't much weaker than the blue dragon. When Charlotte climbed up from the Taisha's body to observe, Langer jumped down from the tree and said, "Can you give me its teeth?" Charlotte didn't even think and said, "If you want it, then take it. Do you want me to help you get it?" Langer said, "No, I'll do it myself." She paused for a moment and then said, "In our tribe, the person who kills the Taisha will get the title of warrior. The proof is its teeth. The Taisha's teeth are the hardest part of its body. They are comparable to alloys and are the best material for spears and knives. I will take all of its teeth. When we get to the tribe, if anyone asks you, tell them that I killed this Taisha. Okay?" Charlotte smiled and said, "It's not good to lie, right?" Lanja wrinkled her nose and said, "If it wasn't for me, you would have been eaten by the Taisha. If you help me become a warrior, I will have a say in the tribe, and your goals will be easier to achieve." "Okay, if anyone asks me, I will say that you killed this Taisha," Charlotte said. He didn't care who killed it at all. This matter wasn't considered a glory to him. Langer took out her military knife and took out her teeth. When she used the knife to cut the meat on the gums, she suddenly thought of something. "That's right, I saw that your bow uses a steel bowstring. That's not a good material. You should take the Taisha's thigh tendon. Its thigh tendon is also an extremely tough material. The warriors in our tribe all use the Taisha's thigh tendon to make bowstrings. If you change your bowstring, the power of your metal bow will increase by a lot." Charlotte's heart moved. "Thigh tendon works too?" Langier said, "Of course, the Taisha is one of the top 4 beasts in the Forest of Rest. This kind of beast is only ranked in the top 4. I thought it was second only to the blue dragon and was ranked second." Charlotte said. Langier said, "Blue dragon is third." Charlotte was surprised. "The blue dragon is only third? What kind of beasts are the second and first?" Ranked second is Lontan. Blue Titan? Charlotte thought of the Titans. They were a race of gods in ancient Greek mythology. They had a huge physique and divine power. However, that was a myth after all. It was impossible for them to appear on this planet. "That's..." Langier's eyes were filled with awe. "It's a beast that can climb trees and rocks like an ape. Its claws have infinite strength. The tree we were hiding in just now would have been broken in less than 20 blows. Its bite strength is also very terrifying. Just like this Taisha that I killed, it could bite off its head in one bite." Charlotte's back went numb. "Then what kind of ferocious beast is ranked first?" "Rock spirit." "Rock spirit?" Charlotte asked curiously. "In the underground city, I heard Songji say that you are a rock spirit. Could it be that the rock spirit you speak of is an Ahemus?" "Screw you. We Ahemus are not ferocious beasts." Langier said, "We are not some rock spirit. If there really is a rock spirit in this world, it can only be a rock spirit. Songji said that I am a rock spirit, but that is just to sell me for a bit more money. He doesn't understand the Forest of Rest, nor does he understand us Ahemus." "Then what kind of ferocious beast is a rock spirit?" Charlotte was even more curious. Langer thought for a moment before saying, "I haven't seen one either. Rock spirits are very rare. The elders in the tribe said that rock spirits are usually active in places with spirit mines. They are very mysterious. Rock spirits are the protectors of us, Ahemus. Every time we hear the rock spirits call, we will respond and kill the people who are looking for spirit mines." Charlotte suddenly remembered Cantor's description in the notebook. He and his companions found a spirit mine, but they were suddenly attacked by the Ahemus and died in the Forest of Rest. Did Cantor and his companions die because the rock spirit summoned the Ahemus, and then the Ahemus killed them? "Why don't you do it?" "You don't want its hamstring, but I do," Langier said. Charlotte came back to his senses and said with a smile, "You are a greedy woman. You're also very thick-skinned." He thought to himself, rock spirits are related to spirit mines, and the Ahemus see rock spirits as their protectors. There must be secrets and clues about spirit mines in the Ahemus tribe. If I continue to ask her about rock spirits, I'm afraid it will make her feel disgusted and defensive. Let's not ask her. I will think of a way to find clues when we reach her tribe. Charlotte also used a military knife to cut the meat. He didn't think much of it before, but after he started, he realized that Tai Sha's skin was like natural armor. It wasn't very thick, but it was extremely tough. Even a military knife made of alloy would have a hard time cutting it. He left the corpse and took out the assault rifle from his equipment bag. He then fired 2 shots at Tai Sha's butt. "What are you doing?" Lan Jier was shocked. "I want to test the bulletproof properties of its hide." Charlotte quickly walked behind Tai Sha's butt and carefully examined the area that was hit by the bullets. He was shocked by what he saw. There were only 2 faint traces of being hit by bullets on Tai Sha's buttocks. Even the skin was not broken. This was the best natural material for making bulletproof vests. Although the blue dragon skin was also extremely bulletproof, the blue dragon skin had very hard scales that were almost impossible to work on. Moreover, if blue dragon skin was used to make bulletproof vests, the shiny blue scales would not only affect the body's mobility, but would also become the most eye-catching target on the battlefield. Bullets couldn't penetrate it, but cannonballs could. Therefore, although the blue dragon skin had excellent defensive capabilities, it was not suitable to be used to make bulletproof vests. On the other hand, Tai Sha's hide was very suitable. It was black, not very thick, and would not affect the flexibility of the body. More importantly, its defensive power was not much weaker than the blue dragon's hide. "So you want to use Tai Sha's hide to make armor?" Lan Jier saw through Charlotte's thoughts. Charlotte said, "The Blue Moon People's armor is made of composite materials, so it's very stiff. I want to use Tai Sha's hide to make a set of armor to replace the Blue Moon People's light armor. Then I'll help you. Our tribe has the best craftsman who can make armor. As long as you pay him well, he'll help you make the best armor." Lan Jier's eyes flashed with a cunning light. Charlotte smiled. "The best craftsman is your father, right?" "Huh? How did you know?" Lan Jier was stunned. "I guessed," Charlotte said. Of course, it wasn't a guess. In the Forest of Rest, Charlotte could read her thoughts as easily and naturally as breathing. However, you wouldn't tell Lan Jier this secret. Lan Jier pulled out Tai Sha's teeth, then used them to cut up Tai Sha's hide and flesh. Only then did Charlotte realize that Tai Sha's teeth were much sharper and more useful than a military knife made of alloy. However, when he asked for a tooth, Lan Jier refused. The reason was that he had already given it to her, which made him a little depressed. In his heart, he also labeled Lan Jier as a greedy alchemist miser. After using Tai Sha's teeth, the work of cutting up the carcass became easier. However, it still took about 3 hours to complete. Lan Jier got the teeth, while Charlotte got the hide and the hamstring. When the 2 left, Lan Jier also cut up some meat to take with her. That meat could be considered as food supplies. The 2 walked in the forest for a day, and when it was dark, they set up camp in the forest. Charlotte set up a camp tent, while Lan Jier picked up dried branches and leaves to light a bonfire. The blazing bonfire dispelled the darkness and chased away the cold. Lan Jier skewered the Tai Sha's meat and roasted it over the fire. Soon, the 2's camp was filled with the smell of barbecued meat. Charlotte, on the other hand, was making his new bow. His initial idea was to use Tai Sha's hamstring to replace the bowstring. However, when he cut off Tai Sha's skin, he found that Tai Sha's ribs were simply natural materials for making bows. Tai Sha's teeth were comparable to the strength of alloy. Its ribs not only had the same strength, but also had better toughness. The original metal fragments used to make the bow were simply not as tough as Tai Sha's ribs. "I didn't know that your hands are so dexterous." Lan Jier stared at Charlotte, her eyes full of speculation. Charlotte smiled. "It's nothing much. It's just that I can make fighter jets and tanks." Lan Jier's mouth twitched, bragging. Charlotte did not say anything else and continued to make his bone bow. He planned to make it in one night. Once it was done, he could discard his metal bow. That thing was too bulky and inconvenient to carry around. The weight of the bone bow was only 1/3 of the metal bow, but in terms of power, it surpassed the metal bow, so there was no need for him to keep it. After Lan Jier roasted the meat, she gave a piece to Charlotte. Charlotte ate some meat and then continued to make his bone bow. He had no intention of going into the tent to sleep. Longer went into the tent, and not long after, she poked her head out of the tent. "Aren't you going to sleep tonight?" Charlotte said. "I'm going to make the bow. You can sleep by yourself." "Well, I don't want to sleep with you anyway," Longer said. Charlotte smiled. "Then I'll do it tomorrow. I'll sleep with you." Longer suddenly became nervous and hurriedly said, "You big pervert. I didn't ask you to sleep with me. You make your bow and guard my tent. You're not allowed to come in, otherwise." She shook Taisha's sharp teeth. "Otherwise, I'll cut off your pee." Charlotte. In fact, even if Akimis invited him to sleep with her, he would not go. Thinking about the mucous membrane on her body, which man would not shrink back, unless there was a spare penis, but the problem was, which man had a spare penis? Chapter 1397. Whoosh! A metal arrow was released from the bowstring, drawing a trail of heat in the air. With a flash, it stopped again, and by the time it stopped, it had already pierced into the head of Taisha. Boom! The ferocious-looking Taisha fell to the ground, its blood staining the ground. In half a month, this was the third Taisha that had fallen under Charlotte's bow, an arrow. The beast's skin and bones in his hands, as well as the teeth in Lon Jier's hands, had already piled up. Other than the 3 Taisha, Charlotte had killed more than 50 wild beasts of all sizes. The power of the bone bow was much stronger than the metal bow from before. It was not very heavy, but it also reduced the burden on Charlotte. It had already become an indispensable weapon for Charlotte in this vicious forest. After half a month of experience in the Forest of Rest, Charlotte understood one of the important reasons why the explorers and mercenaries could not return after entering the Forest of Rest. This was simply a paradise for wild beasts, and there was a shocking number of them. For the explorers and mercenaries, encountering normal wild beasts was easy to deal with, as their guns could solve the problem. However, when encountering wild beasts of the Taisha's level, they could only pray that the Taisha was full, or that there was something wrong with its stomach. To the Taisha and Lon Jier, their guns were no different from a child's slingshot. Lon Jier took out a foot-long Taisha's sharp tooth and dissected the corpse of the third Taisha. She said, "Pervert, you can keep this Taisha's tooth. The skin is yours too, and you can take as many bones as you want. When you reach the tribe, you can also say that you killed the third Taisha and gained the tribe's respect. Look, I'm so generous, and I treat you so well." Charlotte smiled and said, "I didn't think that there would be a time when a greedy woman like you couldn't take it. Also, when you go back and say that you killed 3 Taisha, it's too outrageous. That's why you said that, right? Aya, why are you so petty?" Lon Jier wrinkled her nose, looking very unhappy. "Just kidding. Tell me, how far is your tribe from here?" Charlotte asked. Lon Jier said, "It's not far. We're already at the edge of our tribe. We can get there before dark." After taking the third Taisha's teeth, hide, and some of its bones, Charlotte and Lon Jier set off again. Most of the weight on Charlotte's body had been converted into Taisha's skin, bones, and teeth. His total weight had already exceeded the weight he carried when he entered the Forest of Rest. If he was exploring the Forest of Rest alone, he definitely wouldn't want so many hides, teeth, and bones, because these things were highly sought after in the Akimis tribe. If he brought these goods to the Akimis tribe, he would be able to exchange them for some useful resources and help. Lonji led the way, and Charlotte followed her. Along the way, he kept an eye out for traces of the blue dragon, but he didn't find any. He had an agreement with the blue dragon sunflower, but he had lost contact with it. He didn't know where it was. Charlotte once asked Lon Ji why the blue dragon didn't appear. Lon Ji's answer was that this was just the edge of the Forest of Rest, and the blue dragon wouldn't be active in this area. Lon Ji also divided the area of the Forest of Rest into 4 parts. She compared the Forest of Rest to a city. The Taisha was active in the 4th ring, the blue dragon was active in the 3rd ring, and Lontan was active in the 2nd ring. The center of the city naturally belonged to the rock spirit. According to Lon Jier, if Charlotte wanted to find the blue dragon, he would have to cross the 4th ring and enter the 3rd ring. However, Charlotte thought this was just what Langer said. After all, beasts were just beasts. They had the concept of territory, but they didn't have the concept of boundaries. They also wouldn't form a country to guard their borders. He was more willing to compare the forest of rest to a sea. There were fish in the shallow water, fish in the deep water, and fish in the deep water. Naturally, there were fish in the deep water. They wouldn't easily leave the sea they were used to. His conjecture was also confirmed. As he and Lan Ji ventured deeper into the forest of rest, the energy field that resisted Lan Yu became more obvious. He also had an intuition that there must be a huge secret hidden in this forest. The sky gradually darkened. Before the curtain of night fell, Charlotte followed Lan Yu to the foot of a mountain. The terrain of this area was flat, but the mountain rose from the ground. It was at least 8,000 meters above sea level. It was extremely majestic. When Charlotte saw it, he thought of Mount Everest on Earth. However, it looked far more majestic than Mount Everest. It had more visual impact because it was the only mountain in this area. The existence of mountains was caused by the movement of the Earth's crust. What kind of movement would create only one mountain? Charlotte's mind was filled with imagination. It's called Mount Achemus. We're here, Lan Yu said as she looked up at the peak of Achemus. Charlotte also looked up. The peak of Achemus was covered in pure white snow. The waist and foot of the mountain were covered in dense forest. Lan Yu pointed to a place on the waist of the mountain and said, "My home is there, but you can't see it now." Charlotte actually saw that there were tree houses everywhere in the forest at the waist and foot of the mountain. There were also many buildings made of rock. Although the tribe of Achemus wasn't a city with tall buildings, it looked like a medieval mountain city. There were castles, villages, and some places even had streets and shops. Although it wasn't dark yet, there were already lights in some places that weren't lit up. This place gave people a sense of peace and tranquility. After passing through a row of trees, a rocky road appeared in front of them. It meandered forward and led to the tribe of Achemus. When Charlotte followed Lan Yu onto the rocky road, his gaze shifted to a stone tablet by the side of the road. The stone tablet was broken, and only a small part of it was still standing on the pedestal. There were 2 words engraved on the broken stone tablet, tablet of. The 2 words on the tablet were Chinese characters, very standard Chinese characters. When Charlotte saw it, he was stunned. He stopped in his tracks. "Why is it on this tablet?" Lan Yu interrupted Charlotte. "Why is it written in human language, right? Do you know where it came from? Tell me." Charlotte was eager to know the answer. Lan Yu said, "I heard from the elders in the tribe that this tablet was erected by Holy Thunder 1,000 years ago. He was the only human who entered the forest of rest and left alive. Our tribe's former king, Wazeras, followed Holy Thunder and left the forest of rest to help you humans fight against the Blue Moon people. Holy Thunder died, and our former king, Wazeras, did not return. The people in the tribe felt that it was Holy Thunder's fault, so they broke the tablet that Holy Thunder had erected. There was actually such a story behind this stone tablet." "What about the other part of the tablet?" Charlotte asked. "You don't want to know." Lan Ji's expression was a little strange. Charlotte smiled bitterly. "Tell me if you know. I'm very curious about what Holy Thunder carved on the tablet." Lan Ji said, "All right, I'll tell you." The tablet was carved with the words peace and advancement together and Holy Thunder. After Holy Thunder died in battle, our master broke the tablet and placed peace in the men's toilet in the Sky Plaza. Advancement together was placed in the women's toilet. As for Holy Thunder, it's under the first step from the Sky Plaza to the Heavenly Temple. People step on it every day. So that's how it is. Charlotte's reaction was indifferent, but he sighed in his heart. Holy Thunder died in battle, but the tablet with his name carved on it was placed on the path that the Achemus had to pass to worship him. This was not the ending that a legendary figure should have. Lan Ji's story cast a shadow over Charlotte's trip to the Achemus tribe. The Achemus hated Holy Thunder. Would they hate him, a human who came later, as well? If that was the case, he would definitely be in some trouble here. The rumbling sound of hooves suddenly came from behind him. It was a shocking sound. Charlotte hurriedly turned around and looked over. A large group of behemoths with blue and black stripes, similar to Lanja, were riding wild beasts that he had never seen before. They were quickly approaching him. The behemoths were all males and very strong. They carried bows, arrows, spears, and other weapons and war armor made of animal hide. Their mounts looked like reindeer with coral-like horns. They were larger than horses and had 4 strong hooves. Not only were they carrying behemoths, but they were also carrying prey of all sizes. It looked like an Archimedes hunting party. When Charlotte saw the behemoths hunting party, the behemoth hunters saw him too. Humans! A tall and strong young behemoth suddenly roared. He suddenly raised the spear in his hand and used the momentum of his mount to stab at Charlotte's chest. As soon as they met, they attacked indiscriminately. Charlotte's worries had become reality. It was so fast and sudden that Charlotte was caught unprepared. Lanji suddenly stood in front of Charlotte and spread her arms to protect Charlotte. Amagang, he's my friend. The young behemoth called Amagang put away his spear and pulled his mount back. He looked at Charlotte coldly. Lanjier, who is he? Why did you bring him to our tribe? Amagang and Lanji were speaking the behemoth language. Half a month ago, Charlotte did not understand this language. However, after spending more than half a month with Lanjier, he would read the relevant information from Lanjier's brain every day to understand the behemoth and learn the behemoth language. After half a month, with his extraordinary learning ability, he had long mastered the language. Therefore, when Amagang and Lanji were talking, he did not need to use the branding power to capture their brainwaves and use his brain to interpret their thoughts. He could understand them directly. Charlotte heard anger and hatred in Amagang's tone, but he did not see it in the eyes of the other behemoths. Most of the behemoths who rode on the reindeer were curious and wary of him, an outsider. The behemoths hated holy thunder. This was a thing that happened 1,000 years ago. The behemoths from back then were no longer in this world. Now, the behemoths did not even know what holy thunder looked like. Even if they hated him, how much could they hate him? Now, humans had become food for the Blue Moon people and were on the verge of extinction. They were truly pitiful creatures. Given such a situation, how much did the behemoths hate humans? Therefore, Amagang's reaction was not normal. This was the judgment that Charlotte made in that moment of observation and thought. Chapter 1398. Amagang's eyes were fierce and aggressive. Charlotte's reaction was calm. He did not avoid Amagang's gaze. He spoke the behemoth language. I am Lanji-er's friend. My name is Charlotte. Nice to meet you, warrior Amagang. Amagang was a warrior of the behemoth tribe and the leader of the hunting team. This was the information Charlotte had just obtained. Some of it was stolen from Amagang's brain, and some from the other members of the hunting team. He also obtained an important piece of information. Amagang had liked Lanji for a long time. Amagang regarded Lanji as his woman. This was no secret in the behemoth tribe, but Lanji did not have any feelings for Amagang. It was this information that made him understand why Amagang wanted to stab him to death. Amagang was jealous. Although Charlotte was polite, Amagang did not appreciate it. Shut up, I did not ask you. Also, the behemoths will never be friends with you humans. Charlotte shrugged and endured it. Also, you are an idiot. How dare you break into the Forest of Rest? This is a forbidden place for you humans. You will die here, I promise you. Amagang's tone was full of threat. Lanji was angry. Amagang, Xiaolei is my friend, and I was the one who brought him here. If you want to hurt him, you'll have to hurt me first. I'm also a warrior of the tribe. Lanji threw the big bag she was carrying on her back to the ground. Crash! The bag opened, revealing a big bag of white teeth. Those teeth were as white as jade, sharp, like natural daggers and short swords, exuding a chilling aura. Wow, aren't those Taisha's teeth? A middle-aged hunter was shocked. A young hunter exclaimed, so many. I am afraid there is more than one Taisha. Lanji, how did you do it? Someone asked. Lanji, you disappeared for so long. Have you been hunting in the Forest of Rest? Someone asked. Impossible. How could she kill a Taisha? The sounds of discussion were very noisy. Warrior wasn't just a title, it was also an honor. It also represented power and the right to speak in the Akimis tribe. A warrior could receive more assignments and higher authority. Although these rights did not explicitly state that she could bring people to the Akimis tribe, Longer seemed to mean it. She was a warrior, and she had the right to bring her friends here. A few tie teeth does not mean that you are a brave warrior. Whether you're a brave warrior or not still needs to be decided by the council. But according to our tradition, I can ask your friend for a duel, and he must agree. Amagang's gaze once again shifted to Charlotte's face. His eyes were filled with provocation and contempt. Charlotte was about to refuse, but Longer had already said, "Okay, no problem. Let's follow our tradition. I'll ask my friend to get ready. Let's meet at Sky Square." Oomph. Amagang snorted coldly. "You'd better prepare a tree coffin for him." Amagang ran past Longer and Charlotte with a hunting team, and the sound of hooves was deafening. Charlotte said, "Why do you make such a decision for me?" Longer said, "The Akimis only respect the strong. If you want to stay here and do something, you have to earn the respect of the Akimis. Amagang is targeting you, and this is a good opportunity for you to show your strength." "Is he very powerful?" Charlotte asked. "What do you think?" Charlotte smiled bitterly, feeling that he had asked in vain. The information he had obtained from Longer's brain described Amagang's strength as very powerful, but this was obviously not enough. However, he was not very worried about the upcoming duel, because he did not feel the existence of the branding power from Amagang. To him, an opponent like Amagang could not be mentioned in the same breath as Kasher Ruiz and Isatab, and the threat he posed to him was very limited. Entering the Akimis tribe, Charlotte became an eye-catching presence. Men and women, young and old, all stared at him. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, vigilance, suspicion, and hostility. Longi was in a different situation. She kept greeting and joking with people. It gave people the feeling that she knew all the Akimis, and she was the most popular one in the entire tribe. Longi did not walk far before she hitched a ride. The driver was an old man, and his car was also pulled by an animal that looked like a reindeer. After capturing the thoughts of the old Akimis in the car, Charlotte found out that this animal that looked like a reindeer was called a horned IMA. It was docile and easy to tame. Because it ran fast and had good endurance, it became the favorite domesticated animal of the Akimis. The horned IMA also played an important role in the Akimis hunting and agricultural production, just like the cattle and horses that humans raised on Earth. The difference was that the Akimis never ate the horned IMA. They treated the horned IMA as a true companion, not a kind of food. After hitching a ride with the old Akimis, Charlotte and Longer arrived at a street on the mountainside in less than half an hour. The horned IMA's car stopped under a giant tree, and there was a wooden door on the trunk of the giant tree. On the wooden door was written Blue Woods Dad's Grocery in Akimis. This was Longer's home. Charlotte stood on the stone street next to the giant tree and looked up at the canopy. He saw a few tree houses built on the branches. The tree houses looked simple, but they were sturdy and had a unique primitive style. Along the way, Charlotte actually saw many such tree houses built on trees, and there were also street-side shops built from hollowed-out giant trees. All of these gave him a very novel feeling. This was a forest city that was in progress, and the Akimis had perfectly blended with the forest. "Goodbye, Tucker." Longer thanked the old man. "Longi, you're welcome." Tucker's father smiled and said, "I'll get your father to repair my wheels. Just get him to give me a discount." "That won't do." Longer smiled and said, "But I can get him to do some for you." Tucker's father smiled and said, "You two are really made for each other. You both love money. All right, I'm leaving. Good luck." After sending off Tucker's father, Longer knocked on the door. "Old Blue, I'm back." The door of Blue Woods' Dad's Grocery opened, but it wasn't Blue Woods' father who came out. Instead, it was a middle-aged Akimis woman. She lifted her hide skirt and rushed out of the shop. She didn't even dare to look at Longer. Perhaps it was because she ran too fast, but the wind blew up her hide skirt, and a blue stripe but was immediately exposed to the air. That but was not sexy, but it was definitely eye-catching. It was not only because it was a woman's, but more importantly, it had two very obvious blue palm prints on it. Longier was stunned on the spot. She clearly did not expect such a situation to happen. At that moment, a fat old man, a chemist, walked out of the tree hole shop. When he saw Longier standing at the door, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he revealed an exaggerated expression and opened his arms to give Longier a bear hug. "Ha ha ha, my precious daughter, where have you been all this time? I miss you so much." Longier pushed him away with a look of disdain. "You only think about your money and women." Then, he turned to Charlotte and said, "This person is my father, Blue Wood, but you don't have to care about him." Sally could not help but laugh in his heart. Like daughter, like father. There were too many similarities between this pair of father and daughter. Only then did Blue Wood shift his gaze to Charlotte and said, "Human kid? Precious daughter, why did you bring a human to our tribe? Is he rich? How much money did you cheat him of? Is this guy stupid? Have you slept with him? Did you suffer any losses?" There were a lot of questions, and every one of them was embarrassing. This Akimist old man named Blue would seem to think that Charlotte could not understand the Akimist language. So he said these words in front of Charlotte. He did not care about Charlotte's feelings at all. Charlotte did not know how to greet Blue Wood, but out of courtesy, he still smiled at him. "Longer," he said, "he can speak the Akimist language, you drunkard and lecher." "Ah." Blue Wood's face changed into a surprised expression. A human who can speak the Akimist language is really a knowledgeable talent. "Young friend, I welcome you to my house." In the next second, Blue Wood and Charlotte hugged each other. It was as if the words he had just said did not exist. His ability to adapt to the situation and the thickness of his skin were amazing. Longier wrinkled her nose. "I'm going back to my house. Are you going to stay with him or come with me?" Charlotte said, "Of course I'm going with you." He then smiled and said to Blue Wood, "Dad Blue Wood, nice to meet you. Let's chat later. I want to ask you to help me make a set of Tisha Beast leather battle armor." Blue Wood's gaze then shifted to the bulging equipment bag on Charlotte's back. He did not hide the greed and excitement in his eyes. "I didn't expect you to have Tisha Beast leather. Let me have a look. Believe in my skills. I will definitely make you the best Tisha Beast leather battle armor in the world." Charlotte was about to take off the equipment bag and hand it to Blue Wood when he heard Longier say, "If you give it to him now, he will definitely give you a set of rat leather battle armor." Charlotte was speechless. Blue Wood stared at Longier. "Baby girl, what's wrong with you? I'm a father who loves you with all my heart. I worked so hard to bring you up." Before Blue Wood could finish speaking, Longier had already walked into the tree hole shop. "Dad Blue Wood, let's talk later." Charlotte followed her in. The treehole shop was bigger than Charlotte had imagined. It was about 30 square meters. There were several shelves in the shop, and the shelves were filled with goods waiting to be sold. There were bows and arrows, spears, battle knives, and beast leather battle armor, as well as some flour and dried meat. There was even a pair of Blue Moon People's battle boots that could help people run and jump. There were also some goods that Luli had never seen before. There were dozens of goods on the shelves. There was no particular pattern to their placement, and it looked very messy. Charlotte did not look at them for long. He followed Longier up the stairs. This was the first time he had seen a staircase carved from the inside of a tree trunk, and it was also the first time he had walked it. Just as Charlotte followed Longier up the stairs, Blue Wood's father's expression changed. He was calm and serious, and he seemed to be preoccupied. It was as if he had suddenly become a different person. Chapter 1399. Longier's treehouse was at least 30 meters above the ground, which was equivalent to living in a 10-story building. It was built on a few branches, and it was all made of wood. Most of the furniture in the house was also made of wood. There were many decorations in the treehouse, such as garlands made of flowers and vines, religious patterns made of animal bones, and so on. Everything exuded the aura of primitive nature. Charlotte also saw Longier's bed. It was a small wooden bed, and the quilt was made of a well-colored animal skin. There was also her wardrobe. When he looked through her wardrobe, He saw some tribal-style clothes sewn with animal skins, and some clothes made of plant fibers similar to linen. However, he did not see any bras or underwear. The Ahimus never wore underwear or bras. This was a custom that he had known for a long time, but every time he thought about it, he could not help but feel confused. Lonji said, "Let me tell you about our gladiatorial tradition. It is forbidden to fight without a reason, and it is also forbidden to fight with the strong bullying the weak. However, if there is a conflict between the two sides, we usually deal with it in a fair fight. The venue is in the Sky Square. If you win, your request will be more convincing and easier to satisfy. Gladiatorial fights involving tribal warriors will usually attract a lot of people to watch, and the tribal council will also send representatives. If you beat Armagorn, you can ask the representative of the council to stay." Charlotte nodded. "I understand. Tell me the details of the gladiatorial fight." "Let me finish," Longier said. "The representative of the council will definitely ask you why you want to stay." She interrupted Xia Lei's words, but when she said this, she started to stutter again. Charlotte smiled. "Just say what you want to say. Don't worry about it. You have to tell the representative that you love me and want to marry me," Longier said. "Huh?" Charlotte looked at Longier, stunned. Longier stared at Charlotte fiercely. Do you think I want to? It is I, not you, who will lose my reputation. I'm trying to help you. Don't you see the hostility shown to you by the people here? You have to have a good reason to stay. If you don't have a good reason, they'll kick you out if you're lucky, or kill you if you're unlucky. But even if you're lucky and the tribal council allows you to leave, do you think Amagang will let you go? He will lead his hunting team and even join forces with warriors from other tribes to hunt you down." Charlotte fell silent. Before coming to the Ahimus tribe, he had thought about the danger of doing so, but he still came because the Ahimus tribe held the answers he was looking for. "Believe me, this is the best I can think of. Now you need to make a decision. If your answer is no, you should leave this place as soon as possible. If you step into the Sky Plaza to fight Armagang, you'll have to do as I say." Charlotte was silent for a moment before he said, "All right, I'll do as you say." Longier's mouth showed a trace of a smile. "You made the right decision, so you need to pay 100,000 Blue Moon coins." Charlotte was stunned on the spot. Just now, he thought that Longier's character had exploded, but in the blink of an eye, the fox revealed its tail. She said so much and went around in a big circle, but in the end, it was all for one thing: money. Longier said, "Don't tell me you don't have money. I know how much you've plundered from Songji's treasure house. There are at least 200,000 Blue Moon coins in your equipment bag. I heard from the merchant that you've exchanged at least 200,000 Blue Moon coins. Am I right?" Charlotte smiled bitterly. "You're right. I can also agree to your conditions, but I also have a condition. You have to tell me, why do you like money so much? Why do you need so many Blue Moon coins?" "To save for my dowry." Longier showed a cute expression. Of course, Charlotte would not believe her words. He quietly released his brand power and used it to wrap Longier up. Instead of asking her and being tricked by her, it was better to directly steal the relevant information from her brain. In fact, there was also a question about stealing information from the Ahimus brain that Charlotte could not figure out until now. That was when he was in the underground city of the border wasteland. He had no way to steal any information from Longier's brain. Her brain seemed to have a natural immunity to his stealing. However, this situation changed after he reached the Forest of Rest. In the Forest of Rest, he inadvertently captured Longier's thoughts. He then tried to enter her brain and stole some information. During that time, he had also learned the language of the Archimedes. However, this was his secret, so he did not tell Longier said that she knew his secret. Although she did not specifically say what secret she knew or to what extent, when he used the brand power to control the brains of the armed men of the Black Market Alliance in Songji Stone Building, she was not nervous at all. She did not even have the slightest bit of curiosity. In fact, this already showed that she knew about the existence of the brand power in his body and what kind of ability he had. However, even knowing this, she was not afraid of him at all. This also showed that she was very confident in her immunity to the brand power. However, all of this changed after he entered the Forest of Rest. Why did this happen? This question had always been bothering Charlotte, but he would not mention it in front of Lanji. He would rather find the answer himself than let Lanji discover this secret, because it was an advantage for him. Lanji did not know what Charlotte was doing to her. Charlotte agreed to her condition, which made her very happy. She looked at Charlotte and smiled. Stealing information from a target's brain seemed like taking something out of a box. He could take whatever he wanted and take as much as he wanted. In fact, it was not like that. Stealing information from a target's brain depended on the thinking orientation of the target's brain. If the target was thinking about sex, then the most information that could be stolen would naturally be related to sex. If the target was not thinking about anything, and the activity of the brain waves was very low, then the information that could be stolen would be pitiful. In other words, stealing information from a target's brain was actually the information of the brain waves that the brain power captured at a specific time. It could also be said to be information about thinking. Of course, if he controlled the target's brain, he could use forceful methods to obtain deep memories outside of the current thinking. Charlotte had done this many times on Earth. Even if the target's brain was thinking about other things, he could still control the target's brain and steal deep memories. However, he could not do this to Lanji because Lanji's body was originally immune to the brain power. If he forcibly stole the deep memories in her brain, she might find out. However, this time, Charlotte's luck was good. Lanji's brain just happened to be thinking about related things when his brain power energy field quietly wrapped her up. Her brain waves were captured by Charlotte's brain power, and Charlotte's brain also constructed a memory image based on the information carried by those brain waves. It was a hall in a huge transport spaceship. There were blue moon people, Akimis people, Haas people with big heads and crystal ball-like eyes, insect people with wings and 4 arms, and a fly's head, and so on. The characteristics and names of these alien races all came from the thinking information in Lanji's brain. This was the first time Charlotte saw them, and it was a brain image construction. From Lanji's thinking information, some of these alien races came from the Hope planet, but some came from a distant alien planet. Even she did not know their specific location. Then, a familiar face appeared in Charlotte's mind. It was Lanji, who he had met once in Blackbeard's territory in the Whitebone Fortress. Seeing Lanji, a new question suddenly appeared in Charlotte's mind. Why did Lanji appear in the transport spaceship of the Blue Moon people, and she has even seen Lanji before? At this time, a 3-dimensional projection appeared in the middle of the hall. It was a projection of starry sky. In that starry sky, there was an eternal sun, a blue moon, and many other planets. Lanji walked to the side of a very small planet, then raised her hand and gently held the small planet. The small planet was immediately magnified, and the surface of the planet became clear. It was a frozen planet. Its color was white, and it looked like a sparkling and translucent crystal ball. It was especially beautiful. However, because it was very small, there was only one ocean and one piece of land. The first impression it gave Charlotte was that it was a pocket-sized version of Earth during the Ice Age. It also moved around the eternal sun, but because of its remote orbit, its temperature should be very low, which was why it looked like a sparkling and translucent crystal ball. Lanji said, "Planet of Ice, the homeland of the Akimis. Are you Akimis willing to redeem it? I know your desire to return to your homeland has never been extinguished. 1 billion Blue Moon dollars. Give me 1 billion Blue Moon dollars, and you can redeem it." A few of the Akimis began to discuss in low voices. A familiar face appeared among the Akimis. It was Bluewood's father. "Don't you want to return to your homeland? If not, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for another 1,000 years, Lanji said. "No, we want to redeem it. 1 billion it is. Please give us 20 years, Lanji said. "Do you mean what you said?" Lanji asked. Bluewood said, "She means what she said. Please give us 20 years. "All right, 20 years in an instant. However, you have to pay me another 300,000 Blue Moon dollars every year. Otherwise, I won't help you," Lanji said. Lanji immediately became anxious. 300,000? And it's an extra payment we don't have. Blue had interrupted Longier. No problem. We will pay you another 300,000 Blue Moon dollars every year, but you have to come to the Forest of Rest to collect it. We have no way of coming up. Deal. Every year on this day, I will send my people to the Forest of Rest to collect it. Lonciti's face revealed a happy smile. Longier's thoughts came to a conclusion as she secretly said in her heart, "Although I almost died at Songji's hands when I left the Forest of Rest, I earned 500,000 Blue Moon dollars. In addition to the 100,000 Blue Moon dollars that idiot Charlotte promised me, I now have 600,000 Blue Moon dollars. I can finally relax for the next 2 years, and I'll go back and let old man take advantage of this idiot and earn all of his money." Ha ha ha. This was the reason why Longier was so greedy. Now that he knew the truth, although he was blackmailed to 100,000 Blue Moon dollars, Charlotte did not care at all. He did not hate her either. On the contrary, he suddenly had a good impression of her. Charlotte looked at Longier and smiled. His eyes were very gentle. Longier pouted. "Why are you looking at me like that? I'm telling you, I'm helping you. I'm not serious. Even if all the men in this world die, I will not consider you. Do you understand what I mean?" Charlotte nodded his head. "I understand. Let's go to the Sky Plaza. I think that guy can't wait any longer." "Longier," he said, "beat him up for me." Charlotte smiled. Chapter 1400. The Sky Plaza was already filled with people. There were men and women, young and old, but most of them were young Akimis women. Amagang was the youngest warrior in the entire Akimis tribe. He was tall, muscular, and very handsome. There were definitely many Akimis women who liked him. He didn't know if the Akimis had the concept of fans, but in Charlotte's eyes, those young Akimis women were Amagang's hardcore fans. They would cheer for Amagang and even attack him to create a home, atmosphere, and an advantage for him. But he didn't care, because he was a ferocious dragon that crossed the river. When Longier and Charlotte appeared, everyone's eyes shifted to them. Longier and the others definitely knew each other, but they didn't know who Charlotte and the others were. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, suspicion, and even hostility. Amagang looked coldly at Charlotte and Longier. His eyes were filled with hatred. Longier reached out and grabbed Charlotte's arm. She was talking and laughing with Charlotte, and their actions were very intimate. "Damn it, how could she get together with a human kid? That kid must have lied to her," Amagang said hatefully. A middle-aged Akimis man came to Amagang's side and watched with him as Charlotte and Longier slowly walked over. He was dressed differently from the rest of the Archimedes. He wore a white robe and a round crown woven from vines on his head. He stood out among the crowd in the square, looking like a knowledgeable intellectual, while the people around him were primitive people holding sticks and stones. This person was the representative sent by the Ahimis Tribal Council, Uriah. "He doesn't look afraid," Uriah said. Amagang snorted. "That's because he doesn't know who he's facing." Uriah said, "I saw the bone bow and bone spear on him. They seem to be made from Tai Shah's bones. This shows that his archery and spear skills are quite good. I suggest you fight hand-to-hand with him. You are the strongest warrior in our tribe. No human can be stronger than you and know how to fight better than you. I'm sure you can break his neck with your bare hands. You want me to kill him? Kill him." Walaya's voice was cold. Amma nodded. His lips curled into a cold smile. "Even if you didn't tell me, I would have killed him anyway." Longier held on to Charlotte's hand and walked in front of Amagang and Uriah. The crowd automatically retreated, giving them space. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Longier suddenly hugged Charlotte's waist and kissed his lips. Charlotte's attention was focused on Amagang and Uriah. He did not expect her to make such a move. Caught off guard, she succeeded. The moment their lips touched, he felt a warm and soft sensation. A faint fragrance wafted into his nostrils and lingered between his teeth. Only then did he realize that it was a mistake to be afraid of Asimis women. Kissing them was truly a wonderful feeling. How could this be? How shameless. The daughter of Blue Wood's daddy is shameless? You're thinking too much. I'm willing to bet that Lanji has already slept with that human brat. Can that human brat last 10 breaths with Langier? Impossible. He can't last that long. Their structure is different. That human brat's plaything can't satisfy Langier's needs. Ha! It was a mess of discussions. These voices were like oil poured on a fire in Amagang's ears. He clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. Blue veins popped up on the back of his hand one after another, as if they contained terrifying energy. Charlotte, on the other hand, was still enjoying Langier's sweet kiss. He knew that Langier didn't really fall in love with him. She just wanted to earn his money. She was kissing him in front of so many Archimeans just to carry out her plan smoothly. Moreover, the Archimeans did not know what to do. She might have another goal, which was to use this opportunity to anger Amagang so that he would give up on pursuing her. Therefore, he was passive in this situation. He couldn't reject Langier, let alone push her away. On the contrary, he had to show that he enjoyed it and loved her. It was this thought that made him raise a hand and place it on Langier's perky butt. Langier's, but was full of elasticity and had the magic to provoke male desire. His hand wasn't stuck, but if there was no cloth on her, but she could stick to his hand if she wanted to. Langier's body stiffened slightly. Her nostrils emitted an extremely soft hum, and her cheeks were flushed with a light blue hue. She let go of Charlotte. She looked like she wanted to bite Charlotte. Langier cleared her throat and faced Amagang and Uriah. Honorable Counselor Uriah, Warrior Amagang, I brought my lover here to accept Warrior Amagang's request for a gladiatorial fight. We don't need to talk about the rules. Let's just talk about our request. After saying that, Langier elbowed Charlotte's waist. This was a signal for him to make a request. Charlotte was well aware of it. He said, "Yes, I have a request. A human who can speak Assamese?" Uriah's eyes flashed with a strange light. "This is the first time I've seen one. Before you make your request, I want to hear the story of you and Langier." Charlotte said, "Langier was captured by a profiteer named Songji. I killed Songji and saved her from the profiteer's gang. We fell in love because of this. I followed her to the Assamese tribe. I know that this place is full of danger, but for our love, I am willing to accept this challenge. I will prove to all of you that nothing can stop my love for Langier, not even death." The crowd of onlookers started discussing again. Amagang clenched his fists even tighter, and his knuckles cracked. Uriah said, "Your story is very good. Tell me your request." Charlotte said, "My request is very simple. I want to stay here and marry Langier." Uriah said, "You want to be one of us, but you are a human." Charlotte said, "Love does not discriminate between races. I have already made it very clear. Nothing can stop my love for Langier, not even death." Uriah's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then accept the test of death. According to our tradition, if you can survive the gladiatorial fight with Warrior Amagang, your request will be satisfied. You can stay and marry Langier." Charlotte smiled. "Thank you. For Langier, I will try my best to survive." Uriah and Langier also retreated, leaving only Charlotte and Amagang in the circular space. Amagang said, "Kid, let's have a fight between men. Throw away your bow and spear, and we will use our fists to solve our problems." "No problem," Xiale readily agreed. Then he untied the bone bow and bone spear that were slung over his shoulder. Amagang sneered and walked toward Charlotte. Amagang was nearly 6 feet tall, almost a head taller than Charlotte. His body was full of muscles that were full of explosive power, and the blue and black stripes on his body made him look terrifying and mysterious. His aura was as tall and majestic as a mountain, giving people a strong sense of oppression. In front of him, Xiale appeared very thin and weak, unable to withstand a single blow. Is that human kid a fool? Didn't Langier tell him that Warrior Amagang is the strongest person in our tribe? Warrior Amagang once killed a horn boar with one punch. Sigh, there's going to be another fool dying under the iron fists of Warrior Armagorn. Warrior Amagang will definitely make his request after killing this human kid. He will let Langier or marry him. I really don't know what Longier is thinking. What's so bad about Warrior Amagang? She should be with Warrior Amagang. There was a lot of discussion. In the eyes of the Alchemist, Charlotte was already a dead man, and Longier was destined to be Amagang's crotch. Amagang stopped 2 steps away from Charlotte and looked down at Charlotte, who was shorter than him. His eyes were full of contempt. "Kid, are you ready?" Charlotte nodded, looking very calm. Amagang said, "Seeing that you still have some courage, I'll let you punch me, and then I'll kill you." Charlotte shook his head. "No need. I'm not weak. I don't need you to give me a chance. I will end the battle in 10 breaths, but I won't kill you. I just want to solve the conflict between us in your own way." "Oomph. Arrogant guy." Charlotte's words angered Amagang. He suddenly took a step forward and swung his huge fist at Charlotte's head. His fist tore through the air like a meteorite falling from the sky. No matter who stood in its way, they would be crushed. Charlotte also moved, but he did not retreat to dodge. Instead, he pounced on Amagang's iron fist. He held Amagang's right fist with his left hand and pushed it to the side. His movement looked soft and powerless, but it was this soft and powerless move that pushed Amagang's entire right arm to the side. Pushing Amagang's fist away, Charlotte's right fist, which he had long prepared, slammed into Amagang's right rib. Bang! A muffled sound. Amagang's body, which was about 300 pounds, was slammed into the ground by Charlotte's small fist. Was Amagang very strong? Yes, he was very strong. But in the Forest of Rest, Charlotte's branding power was fully released. His strength was not something Amagang could compare to. The moment his right rib was hit, Amagang could not help but scream. But his pride as a warrior made him shut his mouth and clench his teeth. But his nightmare had just begun. Without waiting for his body to hit the ground, Xiaolei had already squeezed into his arms, both fists bombarding his lower abdomen and chest like raindrops. Bang, bang, bang. The surrounding Asimists were dumbfounded. Jaws fell all over the square. In the eyes of the Asimists, Charlotte's fists were faster than the wind. They could only see the afterimages of Charlotte's fists. Boom! Amagang's heavy body fell to the ground. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and he lay there motionless. The whole square was silent. It was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Amagang and Charlotte's fight had ended like this. Amagang had walked up to Charlotte and was about to punch Charlotte, but he did not hit Charlotte. Then he was hit by Charlotte's punch. His body fell from the air, but Charlotte did not let him fall. Instead, he chased after him and punched him again and again. Finally, he lay on the ground. The fight was over. Before Amagang started, Charlotte had said that he only needed 10 breaths to solve the problem. In fact, he did not need 10 breaths. The whole process had only taken 8 breaths. The direct descendant of Wing Chun Kung Fu is best at close combat. Coupled with the power of the brand, Amagang, who chose to fight hand-to-hand, is actually the fool. Uriah stared at Xiaolei, dumbfounded. His mind was blank. Charlotte turned and left without saying a word. Longi caught up and held Charlotte's arm. Her face was full of joy. Chapter 1401. The news that Amma, the strongest warrior in the tribe, had just been beaten up by a human boy spread like wildfire throughout the entire Alchemist tribe. Then, there were some new versions of the story. The strongest human boy fell in love with the prettiest girl in the Alchemist tribe. It was love at first sight. He beat up his rival and won her heart. The most greedy girl in the Alchemist tribe was trapped in a fire pit. The strongest human boy killed his way into a violent gang to save her. They fell in love at first sight. He abandoned the humans and came here to continue his love with the greedy girl in the Alchemist tribe. The genius girl in the Alchemist tribe had good eyes. She fell in love with the strongest human boy and seduced him. Then, she brought him to the Alchemist tribe. Her plan was to have the strongest mixed-blood baby with the strongest human boy. The Alchemist people were actually very gossipy, just as all kinds of funny versions of the story were circulating in the Alchemist tribe. The genius girl of the Alchemist was counting the money. 98,000, 99,000. When she reached 99,000, Longi looked up at Charlotte. No more. You gave me 1,000 less. Hurry up and make it up. Charlotte looked at Langer, who was sitting on the bed and counting the money. You gave me one less on purpose, didn't you? Of course not. What's wrong with you? I helped you so much, and you gave me 1,000 less. I didn't expect you to be such a person. Langer was very angry. Let me count. Charlotte reached out to take the money. Langer hugged the pile of blue moon coins in her arms. No, after you count them, I'll have to count them 2 more times. I'm very sure you gave me one less. Charlotte smiled bitterly. Then he took out another blue moon coin from his equipment bag and placed it on the bed. Langer grabbed the large denomination blue moon coin in her hand, afraid that Xiaolei would snatch it back. If he had not stolen the relevant information from her brain and knew why she and her father, Old Blue Wood, worked so hard to earn money, Charlotte would definitely look down on her. But now that he knew why she and Lan Mu's father were so greedy, his heart was filled with sympathy. However, he still hadn't figured out the true identity of Lan Mu's father and her. If Blue Wood's father and Langer were just ordinary Ahemus, why would they be so passionate about redeeming the Ahemus homeland, the planet of ice? Therefore, from this point alone, he could conclude that Lan Mu's father and Langer were not ordinary Ahemus. There must be an unknown story behind this pair of father and daughter. But it was also because of that reason that Langer's body had a mysterious immunity to the power of branding. He did not dare to rashly control her brain to dig deep into the deep memories in her brain. He didn't hesitate to wait for an opportunity to steal Langer's thoughts when she was thinking about relevant questions, and thus find the answer. Langer put the money that Charlotte gave her into a box and locked it. Charlotte smiled and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll steal your money?" Langer carried the suitcase and walked out. "I won't give you this chance." "Where do I sleep tonight?" Charlotte asked. "Now that everyone knows that you're my lover, of course you'll have to sleep in my room. But you can't sleep in my bed. You can only sleep on the floor. There's a blanket in the closet. Go get it yourself." Langer went out the door. Charlotte actually didn't want to stay in the same room as Langer, but he also felt that what Langer said made sense. He had defeated Armagang and had become Langer's lover in a very high-profile manner. If he still slept separately from Langer, it would definitely arouse all kinds of suspicions. After Langer left, he took out a spy and an animal skin blanket from the closet and made his bed on the floor near the window. Through the window, Charlotte saw the Ahemus tribe, which had blended into the forest. There were tree houses and streets that extended through the forest like a spider's web. Everything here felt like a surreal dream. He didn't know when he would wake up and everything in front of him would disappear. Charlotte's gaze moved to the top of the Ahemus mountain. There was a building on the snow-covered mountaintop. Unlike the buildings here, the building was made of stone. It was very majestic and looked like a very large temple. Charlotte thought to himself, "There's a sky temple behind the square where Armagang and I fought. It's also very large. The one on the top of the mountain looks even larger. What kind of temple is that? There's no need for the Ahemus to build 2 temples on the same mountain, right? If it's not a temple, then where is it?" Just as Charlotte was guessing in his mind, he suddenly heard a clear voice outside the window. It was a young woman's voice. She was singing in the Ahemus language. The main idea of the lyrics was, "My love, I hear your laughter coming from the Holy Land. Your voice is so charming and beautiful. I can't get enough of it. The person who killed you is beaten half to death. The warrior's glory was shattered on the ground. I know you like this kind of story, so I'll sing it to you. You're the warrior in my heart. I love you. I love you." The singing was intermittent. Charlotte looked in the direction of the voice. He soon saw the woman singing. In a tree house on the crown of a giant tree next to Bluewood Daddy's general store, a young Ahemus woman was singing by the window of the tree house. There was a vegetable oil lamp next to the woman, and the dancing flame shone on her face. She was very quiet and very beautiful, like a foreign rose blooming in the candlelight. Aren't these lyrics about the fight between Amar and me? Judging from the way she sings, did her lover die in the hands of Armagang? Charlotte thought to himself. The young Ahemus woman was still singing. Perhaps it was the song that reached its climax. 2 teardrops rolled down from the corner of her eyes. Under the light of the oil lamp, the 2 teardrops sparkled like pearls. A sad love song and a sad woman were all factors that easily touched a man's heart. Charlotte got up from his bed and went out the door. He stepped on a giant branch that was at least a meter in diameter and walked toward the woman's treehouse. Although they were 2 different trees, it was impossible for such a giant tree's crown not to be squeezed together. Therefore, the branches of the 2 giant trees became natural paths. It was easy to walk from the giant branches to the other tree. Charlotte did not go to the door because the sad woman's lyrics touched his heart. It made his testosterone explode, and he wanted to comfort her. It was this sad woman that gave him an idea. This idea was related to the question he was thinking about just now, which was the secret of Langer and Bluewood Daddy's identity and ability. When Lanji met him for the first time, she told him that she knew his secret. He was afraid of Lanji's magical immunity to the power of the brand, so he did not dare to control her brain and steal her deep memory. But this sad woman was different. She looked like an ordinary Ahemus woman. She was grateful to him and would not be on guard. So why not look for the answer he wanted from this woman? As Lanmu's father and Lanji's neighbor, she must know a lot about Lanmu's father and Lanji. Also, she was also an Ahemus. If she also had the mysterious immunity that Langer had, then Langer was normal. If she did not have that kind of immunity, then Langer would be the most special one in the Ahemus tribe. The branches that stretched across the sky were quickly left behind by Charlotte. He came to the woman's window. The woman did not notice him and was still singing. Her lyrics were spontaneous, but they were not messy. From beginning to end, they revolved around the theme of love and longing. It was very touching. Charlotte stopped in front of the woman's window and coughed. The woman was startled by Charlotte. She hurriedly stood up and covered her towering breasts with her hands. This was a self-protective action. However, when she saw clearly that the person standing outside the window was that amazing human boy, her nervousness instantly disappeared. However, she was still full of vigilance. Why are you here? Charlotte smiled. He pointed to Lanji's treehouse and said, I live there temporarily. Our houses are not far from each other, so we could be considered neighbors. I heard you singing and was attracted by your voice. I'm sorry to disturb you. If you don't want to do this, I'll go back now. No, there's no need. The woman lowered her hands from her breasts. When she lowered her hands from her breasts, the 2 peaks trembled slightly. Charlotte did not notice it when he was some distance away. Now that he was so close, he suddenly realized that he was facing an Ahemus woman with big breasts. Her breasts were really big, totally meeting the F standard. Her breasts were big, but her waist was very slender, and it felt like he could hold it in his hand. Her slender waist and flat abdomen made her chest look even more firm and large, giving people a strong visual impact. However, Charlotte did not dare to look at her breasts for too long. He just glanced at them and looked away. His face was full of sincerity. My name is Charlotte. Nice to meet you. I know you. You defeated Armagang. The woman smiled at Charlotte. My name is Polisai. She nodded and said, Thank you for defeating Armagang, that hateful man. Charlotte quietly released the branding power. His branding power energy field quietly approached Polisai. His goal was clear, so he did not hesitate. However, he was still cautious and did everything carefully. The woman did not stop. She continued to tell her story. Everyone thinks he's the warrior of the tribe, but I know he's a despicable man. My husband, Gaia, he's the one who deserves glory and respect. Just last year, Armagang and my husband fought for the title of warrior. My husband and Armagang both passed the early test. In the end, they needed a fight to decide who would get the title of warrior. The night before the gladiator fight, Amma had invited my husband for a drink, and he had drugged it. The next day, my husband lost his strength in the fight and was pierced through the heart by his spear. This was a sad and angry story. She was definitely a pitiful woman. However, Charlotte still suppressed the feeling of guilt in his heart. Suddenly, it invaded her brain. At that moment, the information stored in Boris's brain flooded into his brain like a tidal wave. Chapter 1402. Policy did not have the same immunity to the branding power as Langer, so Charlotte had a very easy time controlling her brain without encountering any obstacles. Policy stopped talking, and she quieted down. When she was quiet, she reached out and touched her chin. This was not an action she wanted to do, but Xiale had implanted this action into her brain to determine the degree of control she had over him. The result was obvious. He could now make her do anything, sing, dance, and even give him milk. Milk was an involuntary thought that came to his mind when he saw her shockingly large waves. Would drinking the milk of an Ahemus woman have a better effect on the branding power? This was a big temptation for him, who had mastered this special path of evolution. However, this thought only flashed in his mind for a moment before disappearing. The contents of the information in Policy's brain also appeared in his mind. His brain sorted out the content as quickly as possible, and he also obtained some useful things. Bluewood's father and Lanji moved here 15 years ago. Before that, Policy had never seen Bluewood's father. She did not know where Father Bluewood and Langer came from, but her impression was that Father Bluewood was a very good craftsman but very greedy. Langer, on the other hand, was a crafty, smart, and cunning woman. She had inherited Father Bluewood's ability to make money and was even better at making money than him. Policy did not know the secret of Langer and Father Bluewood, which was normal. Even if they were neighbors who had a good relationship, Father Bluewood and Lanji would be on guard against her to protect their secrets. In Policy's deep memory, this Ahemus tribe was the only remaining Ahemus tribe, and it had existed for more than 3,000 years. The first Ahemus lived on the planet of ice, and the planet of ice gave birth to the Ahemus and their unique civilization. More than 3,000 years ago, there was a country established by Ahemus on the star of ice, the Ahemus Empire. The period more than 3,000 years ago was also the period when the Ahemus culture was at its strongest. Some Ahemus nobles had mastered the secret of the spirit mine. Then, they used the technology of the spirit mine to send some prisoners to the Hope Star, starting the Ahemus colonization plan. The plan was called the Stone Search Plan, and Policy's ancestors were among the first group of immigrants. The immigrants came to this planet and eventually established this tribe, but there was no more news from the Star of Ice. However, they did not yearn for that place. The Ahemus here were only the descendants of the exiled prisoners. Part of this information was what Policy had heard from the tribal elder, and the other part was what she had read from the books in the Temple of Sky. She liked to read old stories and read books, which was considered an oddity in the Ahemus tribe. The most valuable piece of information to Xiale, and the one that interested him the most, was the Archimedes Stone Search Project. Just the name alone filled his imagination. The Archimedes built a powerful empire on the planet of ice and created the Stone Search Project to bring prisoners to the planet of hope. In Policy's deep memory, the Ahemus had mastered the secret of the spirit mine, and the Ahemus must have the spirit mine. But why did they come to the Hope Star to look for stones? Could it be that they were not looking for an ordinary spirit mine, but one that was of extraordinary significance to them? Also, from what I can see, the Ahemus technology is almost zero. What was the level of technology of the Ahemus Empire 3,000 years ago? How did the Ahemus nobles on the Star of Ice send prisoners to this planet? Spaceships or something else? Something else? Charlotte suddenly thought of the stone city that brought him to this world, which was the sky city that Keja Ruiz had mentioned. The Ahemus believed in the god of the sky, and the stone city was called the Sky City. Could there be a connection? Endless imagination, endless questions. Policy stood there quietly. She did not know anything. Suddenly, there was a sound behind him. It was the sound of footsteps coming from inside the tree. Xiale's train of thought was interrupted. He turned around to look. His vision penetrated the tree trunk almost without any resistance, and he saw what was going on inside the tree trunk. Lanji had already dealt with the money, and she was climbing up the stairs inside the tree trunk. Charlotte retracted his gaze, and, at the same time, he ended the control of Polisai's brain. He controlled Polisai's brain for a few minutes, but for Polisai, it was just a brief moment of absent-mindedness. Where's I just now? Boris looked a little confused. Xiaolei's expression was solemn, and he looked very angry. You said it. That despicable bastard Armagang drugged your husband and killed him. He used despicable means to take away the glory that should have belonged to your husband. I also hate that guy, and I think we can be good friends. Polisai nodded slightly. She was obviously cautious about Charlotte's "we could be good friends" proposal. After all, she had just met the human boy in front of her, and she did not know him at all. Okay, I won't bother you anymore. I'm going back. Charlotte said goodbye and left, walking quickly. Be careful, don't fall down the tree. You're not an Achemus, you can climb trees at will. Polisai warned. Charlotte did not look back, but raised his right hand and waved twice, indicating that he heard her. Charlotte returned to his room and crawled into the animal skin quilt. Just as he lay down, Lanji opened the door and walked in. You're sleeping so early? What else can I do but sleep? Charlotte said. Follow me down. My father wants to see you. Bring your equipment bag. It wasn't easy for me to convince him to help you make the Tai Sha armor, Lanji said. Charlotte climbed out of the quilt, then carried the equipment bag and followed Lanji, saying, I'll say this first, I won't do it if it's too expensive. Lanji rolled her eyes at Charlotte. Why are you so stingy? Men should be generous. My father is the best craftsman in the Achemus tribe. You can guarantee the quality by spending a little more money. Charlotte, when they arrived at Old Man Lanmu's grocery store, Charlotte did not see Old Man Lanmu. Lanji pushed open the door of the grocery store and walked out. Charlotte did not ask and followed Lanji out of the grocery store. Lanji climbed up the stone street, not stopping until she passed the Sky Plaza. Charlotte looked up at the top of the mountain and thought to himself, is she going to take me to the top of the mountain? Lanji still did not say where she was going. She continued to climb up with Charlotte. The higher they went, the fewer trees there were, and the tree house that Achemus lived in gradually disappeared. However, the stone road under their feet still extended towards the top of the mountain. Half an hour later, all the trees had disappeared, leaving only bare rocks and slightly blue soil. This strange soil piqued Charlotte's curiosity. Why is the soil here a little blue? My skin is still blue. Why don't you ask me why my skin is blue? Lanji said. Charlotte wanted to release the branding power to steal her thoughts during this period, but after thinking about it, he eventually gave up. He could steal the answer to the same question from an ordinary Achemus. There was no need to steal from Lanji's brain. The mysterious immunity in her body was always a hidden danger to him. Before he figured out the truth, he had to reduce his actions of stealing information from Lanji's brain. The less, the better. I didn't expect you to end the fight with Armagang in such a short time. In my imagination, you would be beaten half to death by him and then win by a fluke, Langer, he said as she walked. Where did you get your strength from? I've never seen a human kid who can fight as well as you. Where did you come from? Charlotte said calmly. I was born with such great strength. Of course, I came from where I came from. Also, why don't you ask me why my eyes can see things and why my mouth can speak? Lanji immediately stopped breathing on the spot. The old stone road made a turn on the hillside. After passing the turn, a stone tablet entered Charlotte's sight. The stone tablet was engraved with the Achemus language, Forbidden Area. Trespassers will face the judgment of the council. Forbidden Area? Charlotte's heart was filled with curiosity. What's at the top of this mountain? Why is it listed as a forbidden area? What kind of judgment will those who trespass face? It's a death sentence. Those who enter without permission will be burned alive or stoned to death by those guys from the council. Lanji stopped in her tracks. We're not going in, are we? Xiaolei probed. Lanji looked at Charlotte, her eyes full of provocation. Are you afraid? Where did you guys go? Charlotte strode towards the stone road behind the stone tablet. Lanji grabbed Charlotte's arm. You rascal. I was just joking with you. Do you really want to go in? Are you trying to get us killed? Charlotte shrugged. Not going in? Then why did you bring me here? A date? Screw you. Follow me. Langer left the old stone road and walked to the other side of the hillside. Charlotte followed Langy across the hillside and finally arrived in front of the cave. There was a wooden door at the entrance of the cave. It looked very sturdy and airtight. On the wooden door was written in some kind of paint, Langy's father's workshop. Trespassers will be fined 500. This warning was really Langy's father's style. Langy pushed the wooden door open and walked in. After entering the cave, there was a very large space inside. Inside the cave, there was a furnace for metallurgy, a sawing machine for sawing wood, raw materials and tools for processing animal skins, wooden aggregates for making bows and arrows, and so on. These things were carefully sorted and stacked. Although there were a lot of things, it gave people the feeling that it was orderly. Langy's father was not in his cave workshop. Charlotte's eyes quickly swept across the cave. He soon found a smaller fork at the bottom of the cave. It was dark inside. All he could see were rocks. Some of the rocks were blue, some were light blue, some were dark blue, and some were blue with a hint of black. My father might be in the lounge. You wait here. I'll call him out. Langy walked towards the fork at the bottom of the cave. Charlotte looked at Langy's full and tight buttocks. He secretly pondered, what kind of tricks are this greedy father and daughter playing? Then he laughed self-deprecatingly. Don't tell me they lure me here to rob me. Langy went into the fork at the bottom of the cave. Charlotte walked to the workbench where Langy's father made leather armor. He picked up a processed animal skin and looked at it. At this moment, there was a sudden sizzling sound in the cave. A large amount of white smoke instantly engulfed the cave. The white smoke had a pungent smell. Charlotte, who accidentally inhaled it, suddenly felt dizzy. A few seconds later, he fell to the ground with a thump and did not get up again. Chapter 1403. Not long after Charlotte fainted on the ground, the white smoke dissipated. Bluewood's father and Langy walked out of the tunnel at the bottom of the cave. Bluewood's father held a sharp-looking alloy machete in his hand. There were traces of human or animal blood on it. Langy held an energy pistol in her hand. She walked carefully, as if she was afraid that Charlotte would suddenly wake up. Charlotte lay quietly on the ground, not moving at all. You point the gun at him. I'll take his equipment bag, Bluewood's father said. Be careful. Langy pointed the energy pistol at Charlotte. This guy took down Armagang in a few seconds. He can kill a Tai Shah with one arrow. He's the strongest person I've ever seen. What's the use of being the strongest? Bluewood's father approached Charlotte with a disdainful smile. Isn't he still bewitched by our sacred ice princess? Hee, there's a saying among humans. Heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. I think this saying applies to you and this kid. Don't call me sacred ice princess. The Empire no longer exists, and you're no longer the king of Achemus. If our secret is known, our plan will fail. The Council's planners might not necessarily execute us. They're the descendants of prisoners, after all. 3,000 years ago, the nobles of the Empire sent their ancestors here as cannon fodder. How could they not hate us? Langy said, You're right, but you don't have to be too nervous. This guy has already been bewitched by us. He won't reveal our secret. Bluewood's father reached out and grabbed Charlotte's equipment bag, then carefully took it away from Charlotte's body. Langy moved closer and snatched Charlotte's equipment bag from Bluewood's father's hands. She opened the equipment bag and took out all the money. When she saw the money, her eyes became scorching hot, and she felt a little radiant. What do we do with this guy now? Bluewood's father waved the alloy machete in his hand. Do you want me to cut off his head? If I chop him into minced meat and sell it to the pie shop, I'll be able to make some money. You can't be serious, right? Haha, just kidding. You're so nervous. Don't tell me you've fallen for this kid. Father Bluewood waved the alloy machete in his hand again. I'm telling you, you can't be with him. Although the Achemus Empire no longer exists, the blood that flows in your body is still that of the Achemus Empire's royal family. You can only marry a man of the royal family to ensure the purity of the royal bloodline. Enough. Idon, take him to my lab. I want to study him thoroughly. He has that kind of energy in his body. I want to figure out what's going on, Lanji said. Lanmu's father carried Xiaolei and walked towards the fork at the bottom of the cave. Originally, there were no lights in the fork cave. After Lanji and Lanmu's father entered, there were lights. Furthermore, they were not oil lamps, but very bright electric lamps. There were several man-made rooms in the tunnel, and Bluewood's father carried Xiaolei into one of the rooms. There was some experimental equipment and utensils in the room. There was also a generator for the Blue Moon people. It was very quiet. There was almost no sound when it was working. The electricity in the cave came from it. Bluewood's father put Charlotte on an alloy bench. "Wait for me outside," Bluewood said. "Can't I stay?" Bluewood's father looked a little unhappy. "I want to strip him naked. You're my father. I don't think it's appropriate." Lanji pushed Bluewood's father towards the door. Go, and count the money in his equipment bag." "Okay, but you have to tell me the results," Bluewood's father said. "Okay, it'll be done soon." Lanji pushed Lanmu's father out of the door and pressed on a blue rock on the wall. A clicking sound came from the stone wall. The whole stone wall moved quickly, blocking the door to the room. The door was disguised as a stone wall. It was powered by electricity. This place was filled with a strange aura. Bluewood's father returned to the alloy bench and began to remove Charlotte's clothes. Charlotte was still unconscious. He did not react at all when Bluewood's clothes were removed. Bluewood's movements were very fast. In just 2 minutes, she had removed all of Charlotte's clothes. Her gaze moved down from Charlotte's face and finally stopped at a certain spot. For some unknown reason, she actually reached out and flicked something with her fingers. Puff! The blue and black colored finger suddenly jumped from a force. This scene was very funny, just like a mature big sister teasing a little brat. "Aren't you very powerful? You're like a dead animal that I can play with." Bluewood's mother said to herself, "You're a mysterious person, but it's okay if you don't tell me. I'll figure it out myself. I got a piece of equipment from the Blue Moon people. It cost me a lot of money. You should feel honored that I can use it on you." Charlotte still did not react to being teased and ridiculed. Bluewoods pushed a piece of equipment from the Blue Moon people to the alloy bench. She placed a scanning device on Charlotte's body. Her fingers swept across Charlotte's chest. Her blue fingernails left a faint scratch on the delicate skin. Psionic power. This energy is called psionic power in the Assamese Empire. It's omnipotent. The Assamese Empire's royalty calls it divine power. I should have inherited that divine power. But because of the dilution of my bloodline, it didn't appear in me. You're just a weak human. How can you have psionic power in your body? I must unravel this secret in your body. Bluewood's hand reached out to switch on the Blue Moon people's equipment. At that moment, a hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. She suddenly realized something. She opened her mouth and wanted to scream. But before she could cry out, another palm struck her neck. She let out a muffled groan and fell limply to the ground. Charlotte, who was lying on the alloy bench, got up. There was a sneer on his lips. "If your drug had knocked me out, I would have died several times over. You and your father plotted against me. Don't blame me for being rude. I've always been a person who repays kindness and takes revenge. How you treat me, I'll treat you the same." A minute later, Lanji was lying on the alloy experiment table. Her clothes had also fallen to the ground. She had exquisite facial features, a slender neck, towering lama breasts, a flat stomach, and long, firm legs. Her body was sexy and attractive. No one could find any fault with it. Except for her blue and black striped skin, she was no different from a human woman. Xiaolei suddenly stretched out his hand, bent his finger, and then flicked her something. However, nothing jumped. It was his finger that almost touched it. Whatever Bluewoods did to him, he would do the same to Bluewoods. He did what he said. Bluewood's father didn't react. It seemed that both she and Bluewood's father had underestimated Charlotte's strength. To be more precise, they had underestimated Charlotte's extraordinary immunity. She had lured Charlotte here. Her father, Bluewood's father, had prepared the drug knockout smoke. But she and her father had never thought that Charlotte's body would automatically detoxify the drug. That kind of knockout smoke had no effect on Charlotte. The reason why Charlotte had fainted was to cooperate with the father and daughter's acting. He wanted to obtain important information from them. The moment the knockout smoke appeared, he had decided not to fight. He had to outsmart them. If he pretended to faint, would Bluewood's father and Bluewood's father be on guard against someone who fainted? Of course not. The most deceiving thing was one's own eyes. Both Bluewood's father and Bluewood's father had been fooled by their own eyes. He pretended to faint, and the conversation between Bluewood's father and Bluewood's father appeared. It also brought him a very valuable piece of information. Bluewood's father and Bluewood's father were actually royalty of the Achemis Empire more than 3,000 years ago. Bluewood's father even had the title of Sacred Ice Princess. You and your father came here 15 years ago. Don't tell me you're here to settle down. What are you looking for? Xiaolei's mind was filled with conjectures. His fingers also brushed past Er's two Mount Everest peaks, leaving a faint fingernail mark on her delicate, brightly colored skin. He activated the Blue Moon People's experiment and then used the scanner on the instrument to scan Bluewood's body. The Blue Moon People's experiment instrument immediately displayed the scan data. The data appeared in the form of a holographic projection above the instrument. All the data on Bluewood's body was presented in front of Charlotte, without missing a single detail. This data included the frequency of her brain waves, heartbeat, gastrointestinal peristalsis, strength produced by her muscles, and even the number of pores on her body, how many strands of hair, and how many strands of hair. Everything was accurate down to the single digit. Finally, a new set of numbers appeared, accompanied by a system voice in the Blue Moon People's language. Achemis. Gender: female. Age: 23 years, 11 months, 11 days, 8 hours, 35 minutes. Overall intelligence: 231. Overall combat power: 128. Her genes have attributes similar to a level 1 spirit ore. This attribute allows her to sense the existence of the spirit ore's energy and also allows her body to evolve more actively. The relative value is 2. This type of gene was relatively common among the royalty of the Achemis Empire in the early days, but it is currently very rare. For more information, please refer to archive number 13456. You need to go to the Imperial Library to look it up, and it requires level 1 authority. There were actually levels of spirit ore. Bluewood's genes had attributes similar to a level 1 spirit ore. This allowed her to sense the existence of the spirit ore's energy, and at the same time, it allowed her body to evolve more actively. This was Bluewood's secret, and it was also the reason why she discovered his secret the first time they met. Charlotte's gaze moved away from Bluewood's body. He hesitated for a moment, then moved the instrument's scanner to his own body. Chapter 1404. He had scanned himself because he had scanned Longe, who did not suffer any damage, and there were no obvious side effects. Another more important reason was that he wanted to know what the Blue Moon People's equipment had scanned him. A new holographic projection appeared above the equipment, and his body also appeared in that holographic projection. The crisp female voice of the system appeared again. Human. Gender: male. Age: 1,028 years. October 10th days. 9 hours. 23 minutes. Overall intelligence: 1314. Overall combat power: 1688. Perfect evolution. Absolute evolution value: 6. Body without any flaws. Body contains pure psionic energy. Purity value: 96%, surpassing the value of a special grade spirit ore. It is second only to the purity of the psionic energy contained in the legendary World Stone. Scan results. This is impossible. You are cheating. This was the result of the Blue Moon People's scanning equipment. This result made Xiaolei dumbfounded. His age was actually 1,028 years old. He had really arrived in the world 1,000 years in the future. On Earth, his age was 28 years old. Now, his age was 1,028 years old. He did not cheat, and the Blue Moon people's equipment did not malfunction. This was real and credible evidence. Also, he had always had a very comprehensive control and understanding of his body, but there was no specific value to measure it. Now, the Blue Moon people's equipment gave him an accurate value. His IQ was 1314, which was much higher than the value Fan had measured in the past. Longi-Er's combat power was not weak at all, but her combat power was only 128, while his combat power index was 1,688. It was more than 10 times higher than Longi-Er's. Although he did not know what theory and standard the comprehensive combat power index was based on, the system's judgment of, "You are cheating," was enough to explain the problem. It was a very terrifying value. Am I that powerful? Charlotte smiled bitterly. Then his thoughts shifted to the most important point. The Blue Moon people divided the spirit ores into grades. Longi-Er's genes have the attributes of a grade 1 spirit ore. The energy of my branding power exceeds the value of a special grade spirit ore. It is second only to the purity of the psionic energy contained in the legendary World Stone. This means that there are at least 3 grades of spirit ores: Grade 1, Special Grade, and World Stone. Wait, World Stone? Charlotte's train of thought suddenly stopped. He suddenly remembered another thing with the World Box. Aisatabu and Kasia Ruiz had been trying to crack the secret of the World Box. The name World Box came from Aisatabu. She said that the box was called the World Box in her world. Kasia Ruiz claimed that the Box of the World gave birth to all civilizations, and the Box of the World created him. Cracking the secret of the Box of the World was his lifelong pursuit. After coming to this world, the World Box disappeared, as did the mysterious crystal skull. He had lost all his clues and was lost in this world. Now, a clue finally appeared in front of him. What does the World Stone have to do with the World Box? If I find the World Stone, will I be able to find clues about Sky City? Also, did Longi-Er and Lonmu's father come to the Forest of Rest to look for the World Stone? Or even the Sky Castle? Charlotte's heart was full of conjectures, and his gaze shifted to Longi-Er again. The branding power quietly moved and wrapped around Longi-Er. His branding power energy field was like a cocoon, and Longi-Er was a worm in his cocoon. He already knew Longi-Er's secret. Longi-Er and Lonmu's father had also made a move against him, so there was no need for him to worry about anything, and there was no need for him to be polite to the father and daughter. What kind of secret was hidden in the brain of the Achemis Empire's Sacred Ice Princess? The branding power quickly captured the brainwaves of Longi-Er's brain, but there was almost no content. She was in a state of coma, which was normal. Brainwaves without any actual content were of no value to him. His branding power entered her brain and began to unearth the information hidden in her deep memories. This was the first time he did this to Longi-Er, but this first time was a very special one. His branding power entered Longi-Er's brain, and just as he was about to steal the content of the deep memory stored in her brain, her immune system suddenly activated, and her skin quickly secreted mucus to wrap her body up. Every one of her brain cells was like a locked room that could not be opened. I don't believe you can resist it. Charlotte did not believe it. He increased the release of the branding power energy. After his branding power energy was strengthened, it began to rampage in Longi-Er's brain like an enraged bull. The locks were broken and pried open, and Longi-Er's body also had a clear reaction, which was getting stronger and stronger. Her head trembled slightly, and her body trembled in the same way. Lying on the alloy experiment table, she seemed to be experiencing a click punishment. Although she was in a coma, her nervous system would still respond to external stimuli. Her trembling naturally included the 2 MT Leniverist. They trembled, jumped, swayed left and right, and rippled beautifully. Each ripple was so tempting. Charlotte's brain quickly processed the information. It was a video of Mount Achemis. On the top of this mountain stood a majestic temple. It was almost identical to the Temple of the Sky next to the Sky Square on a mountainside, but it was bigger and more majestic. In the center of the temple, There was a triangular altar in the middle of the temple, and a blue stone was floating above it. After the content buried deep in her memory was awakened, Lan Ji-er's brain released excited brainwaves and a strong desire to take it for herself. Obviously, the blue stone hidden in the temple at the top of the mountain was the reason why she and Lan Ji-er's father came to the Haimish tribe. Information about the blue stone quickly emerged. It was a top-grade spiritual mine. Not only did it store powerful psionic energy, but it also stored information about the stone hunting plan that the ancestors of the Haimish tribe came to this planet. What kind of stone is the stone hunting plan looking for? It can't be the stone in the temple at the top of the mountain, right? If it is, then the stone hunting plan of the Haimish Empire has been completed, and it probably won't be destroyed, right? What kind of stone is the stone hunting plan looking for? Charlotte continued to rampage in Lan Ji-er's brain. More secrets hidden deep in Lan Ji-er's brain were dug out. 2 minutes later, a two-dimensional image suddenly emerged in Charlotte's brain. At that moment, his body trembled violently, as if he had been struck by lightning. At this moment, Lan Ji-er's father's voice suddenly came from the sealed room. "Baby girl, are you done? It's been so long. Don't tell me you've been doing that with that kid. Open the door. I want to see." The voice came from behind the door that was disguised as a rock wall. Lan Ji-er's father was outside the door. Charlotte's thoughts were immediately interrupted, but he could not bear to give up. Such an opportunity was very rare. If he missed it, it would be very difficult to get again. He controlled his branding power and continued to rampage in Lan Ji-er's brain. It was more violent and barbaric than before. However, other than the two-dimensional image, no other information appeared. "Daughter? Speak." Lan Ji-er's father's voice came again, full of anxiety and worry. "Did something happen? If you don't speak, I'll break the door and come in." Charlotte withdrew the branding power. The branding power withdrew from the brain, and the mucous membrane on Lan Ji-er's body disappeared. But her body was covered in beads of sweat. Under the light, each bead of sweat was like a diamond embellished on her body, giving people a deadly temptation. For some reason, Charlotte bent his finger and flicked the spot he had flicked before. When his finger touched it, the mucous membrane suddenly reappeared and instantly stuck to Charlotte's finger. Charlotte was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his hand. In the end, he still lost a piece of his skin. Charlotte's back suddenly felt a chill, and the thing between his legs involuntarily shrank back. That part of hers was indeed mature and attractive, but after the sugar cane went in, what came out was bagasse. Which man would dare to touch her? Knock, knock, knock. Violent banging sounds came from outside the door. Only then did Charlotte come to his senses. He quickly put on the clothes that Lan Ji-er had peeled off, as well as his own. After he was done, he picked up Lan Ji-er's energy pistol and went behind the door, disguised as a rock wall. He reached out and pressed the rock that Lan Ji-er had pressed on before. Click, click, click. The door disguised as a rock wall quickly opened, and Lan Ji-er's father rushed in. He saw Lan Ji-er lying on the experiment table, but he did not see Charlotte. He suddenly realized something and hurriedly turned around to look behind him. At that moment, an energy pistol was pressed against the back of his head. "Put the knife down and stand next to your daughter. Keep your hands where I can see them," Charlotte said. Clang! Lan Ji-er's father threw away the alloy machete in his hand and said nervously, "Don't be rash. We have no intention of hurting you. We just want to figure out your secret. I don't believe anything you or your daughter say. Go." Charlotte's voice turned cold. He reached out and patted the rock on the wall, and the door disguised as a rock wall closed again. Lan Ji-er's father raised his hand and walked toward the experiment table. Seeing that Lan Ji-er, he did not react. He became even more nervous. "What did you do to her?" Charlotte said, "She's fine. I didn't do anything to her. But if you don't behave, I will definitely do something to you." "You emotionless bastard." Lan Ji-er's father suddenly became angry. He shouted at Charlotte, "My daughter has given herself to you, and she doesn't despise a human like you at all. How much pressure did she have to endure to bring you to the Akima's tribe? But look at what you've done now. Are you going to hurt your fiancé and your future father-in-law?" Chapter 1405. Splash. A cup of cold water was poured on Longier's face. Longier moaned and woke up. She subconsciously raised her hand to block. That was a conditioned reflex before she fainted. She wanted to block Charlotte's palm that was aimed at her neck. "Daughter, are you all right? Did he hurt you?" Lanmu's father asked with concern. However, seeing that Longier had woken up, he heaved a sigh of relief. Longier then completely woke up. She saw her father standing in front of her and Charlotte, who was putting down the cup. Charlotte was holding an energy pistol in his hand. That energy pistol belonged to her. She suddenly realized what had happened and got up from the experiment table. Her slender right leg instantly kicked out at Charlotte's right wrist, which was holding the pistol. Charlotte did not dodge at all. Instead, he used the bone on the outside of his wrist to hit Longier's ankle. The crisp sound of bone colliding was heard. Longier immediately cried out in pain. She lost her balance and almost fell to the ground. Lanmu's father supported Longier and said angrily, "What's so great about hitting a woman? Fight me if you have the guts." Just as he finished speaking, Charlotte's right leg suddenly flashed like lightning and landed a kick on his lower abdomen. Lanmu's father and Longier fell to the ground together. Charlotte said coldly, "You two, father and daughter, don't seem to understand the situation. I hope this kick of mine will wake you up." Longier and Lanmu's father looked at each other. The father and daughter exchanged glances. "What are you trying to do?" Although Charlotte appeared very fierce, Longier was not afraid at all. "You better think about what you're trying to do. You're in the Akimis tribe. Without my help, you won't be able to stay here. Also, Amagang won't let you off. You've humiliated him. He'll kill you." Charlotte said calmly, "You're asking me what I'm trying to do? I also want to ask you what you want. If I wasn't smart enough just now, I'm afraid I would have become your lab rat, right? I just want to figure out the secret of your body. I never wanted to hurt you." Longier defended herself. "My good son-in-law, put down the gun. Let's talk this out." Bluewood's father smiled amiably. "Sure, let's talk about it." Charlotte put away his energy pistol. Longier and Lanmu's father got up from the ground. Bluewood's father stared at the alloy machete that had fallen to the ground from the corner of his eye. Longier glared at Charlotte with hatred. The look in his eyes was as if he wanted to skin Charlotte alive and eat him alive. "Kneel down and apologize to me," Longier suddenly said. Charlotte said, "Do you think my knees are that soft?" "Oomph." Longier snorted coldly. "Not only do I want you to kneel down and apologize to me, but I also want you to promise to listen to me completely in the future and obey my orders. You have to do whatever I ask you to do. If you don't agree, I will divulge your secret. When that happens, don't even think about leaving this place alive." Bluewood's father interrupted and said, "Kid, you've offended a lady of high status. She's already being kind and magnanimous by asking you to kneel down and apologize. Don't be ungrateful." Charlotte smiled. "Oh, I know. I've offended the holy ice princess of the Akimis Empire, right? How do you know my identity?" Longier suddenly became nervous. Charlotte said calmly, "Not only do I know your identity, but I also know the real reason you and your father are hiding in the Akimis tribe. You want to steal the spirit mine in the temple at the top of the mountain, right? You're talking nonsense." Longier was already panicking. Bluewood's father also became nervous. Charlotte smiled and said, "Aren't you going to divulge my secret? Go now. When the time comes, in front of all the Akimis people, I will tell them that the princess of the Akimis Empire is hiding by their side and is eyeing their sacred relic. I wonder if such a big secret can be exchanged for my life and let me leave this place alive?" "You." Longier was speechless. She was clearly afraid. "Io, my good son-in-law, what are you two doing? You were so loving just a moment ago. Why are you two quarreling in the blink of an eye?" Bluewood's father smiled and said, "We're a family. A family should love each other. Let's end this matter here. Don't mention it again." Charlotte said angrily, "Who's a family with you?" "You." Bluewood's father was also speechless. He was so angry. Charlotte said, "You cheated me of my money, robbed me, and even drugged me. Are you a family?" After being exposed, instead of going back on your word, you want me to kneel down and apologize and listen to your orders. If I'm still a family with you, how stupid would I be? Good son-in-law, shut up. Charlotte shouted. I'm not your son-in-law. Listen up, both of you. I'm giving you a chance to atone for your sins. I'm only giving you one chance. There won't be a second time. Charlotte's gaze shifted to Longe. Tell me, your goal is to steal the spirit mine in the temple at the top of the mountain. You've been here for 15 years. Why haven't you made your move yet? Bluewood's father and Longe looked at each other again. Don't give me any secret signals. Charlotte looked very fierce. Speak. The temple at the top of the mountain is the Akimis tribe's sacred land. Although it's a sky temple, it's never open to the Akimis. The tribal council and the warrior regiment are guarding it. We haven't found a chance to make our move yet, Bluewood's father said. In fact, Charlotte already knew this answer long ago. He knew it when he stole Longe's deep memory. The reason why he had to force the father and daughter to say it was actually a deliberate act of weakening himself. He didn't want the father and daughter to know that he could steal any information from a person's brain. He couldn't let the father and daughter know that he could control a person's brain. Why do you want to steal that spirit mine? Charlotte asked a question he already knew the answer to. Because, before Bluewood's father could say anything, Longe rushed to say, I'm here to tell you because... She nodded and said, it's a sacred relic of our Akimis empire. We want to take it back. She and Bluewood's father had come for the information related to the stone hunting plan stored in the spirit mine. It was not a sacred relic at all. However, even though he knew that she was lying, Charlotte didn't expose her. Not only did he not expose her, but he also nodded cooperatively. So that's how it is. I understand how you feel. We don't need your understanding. Just don't ruin our business. Longe said hatefully. Charlotte picked up the alloy machete that Bluewood's father had thrown on the ground. Then, he drew the shape of a metal fragment on the ground between Bluewood's father and Longe. After he finished drawing, he threw away the alloy machete and said casually, my last question. Tell me, what is this? Longe and Bluewood's father's eyes focused on the metal fragment that Charlotte had drawn at the same time. Their expressions instantly changed. Speak, Charlotte shouted. The father and daughter shook their heads almost at the same time. What did you draw? Is it a fragment of a ceramic? If you want ceramic fragments in this shape, I can make a lot of copies for you, Bluewood's father said. No, this should be the shape of an island, Longe said. Charlotte, are you looking for this island? If so, I can't help you. I have never seen the sea, let alone this island. Charlotte smiled. You father and daughter really know how to act, but let me tell you, this is a fragment of the world box. Has the Akimis Empire been looking for it for 3,000 years? Your stone hunting plan is looking for this fragment, right? What are you talking about? Why can't I understand anything at all? Longe avoided Charlotte's eyes, but she looked very flustered and nervous. Bluewood's father's reaction was not much better. His forehead was full of sweat. Charlotte said, since I know about the fragment of the world box, I also know about your stone hunting plan. What else do you have to hide? I think we can cooperate. Cooperation? Longe said, what can you do for us? Don't think that we will succumb to you just because you said this. Don't expect us to help you. Charlotte said, I can help you steal that spirit but you have to tell me about the fragment. Also, what do you want that fragment for? Charlotte couldn't get the relevant information from Longe's brain for these two questions. Therefore, he had to ask, but before he spoke, he wasn't very confident about getting the answer. Longe and Bluewood's father looked at each other for the third time and exchanged glances. Bluewood's father suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person. You said you can help us steal that spirit, let's talk about it after you steal it. Longe said angrily, yes, you help us steal that spirit first, and then we will give you what you want. We haven't gotten anything yet, and you expect to get what you want from us? I, Longe, have never done such business. No problem. A relaxed smile appeared on Charlotte's face. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of using the branding power to enter Blue Wood's father's brain to steal the relevant information, but he eventually gave up on the idea. The reason was very simple. There was no relevant information in Lon Ji-er's brain. So how could Blue Wood's father's brain have it? The relevant information must be stored in that piece of spirit or... Tell me your plan. Blue Wood's father was a little impatient. Charlotte said indifferently. It's very simple. First, give me something delicious to eat, then boil some water for me to take a bath. Also, I need a set of superior Tai Sha armor. You, Lon Ji-er, seemed like she wanted to curse, but the words were at the tip of her tongue. Also, return the money you stole from my bag and the 100,000 Blue Moon dollars I gave you before. Not a cent less, Charlotte said. Lon Ji-er couldn't bear it anymore. She roared at Charlotte, and her spittle sprayed on Charlotte's face. Don't even think about it. How do I get to the Parliament? Charlotte turned around and walked away. Forget it. I'll go ask for directions myself. I'll give it to you. 2 tears rolled down from the corners of Lon Ji-er's eyes. The 200,000 that was in her hands flew away. This was more painful than taking her life. Chapter 1406. Delicious food, a hot bath in a wooden tub, and attentive service from the ancient royal family of the Akimis Empire. Even the beds were changed. Charlotte slept on Lon Ji-er's bed, and Lon Ji, who slept on Charlotte's floor. The treatment he was enjoying now was a world of difference compared to the treatment he received before. Who could he blame? Lon Mu's father and Lon Ji-er had shot themselves in the foot. In the dead of night, Lon Ji-er lay on the animal skin quilt on the floor. Her hand moved around under the quilt as if she was scratching an itch. Charlotte's gaze penetrated the animal skin quilt on her body, and then shifted away guiltily. What is this? Lon Ji-er's voice broke the silence in the room. Her right hand stretched out of the quilt and raised high. There was a piece of skin between her thumb and index finger. It was a very large piece of skin. Charlotte knew very well where she had taken that piece of skin from and what kind of skin it was. He pretended not to hear and continued to pretend to be asleep. Stop pretending. I know you're not asleep. Snore, snore. Charlotte simply snored. You damn pervert. You actually used your hand to touch me there. I'm going to kill you. Lon Ji-er suddenly climbed up from the floor and pounced on Charlotte like a tigress. Charlotte said slowly, "How do I get to the Parliament?" This sentence was like a pail of cold water poured over Lon Ji-er's head, and her footsteps came to a halt. She glared at Charlotte, as if she wanted to swallow Charlotte into her stomach. Charlotte said indifferently, "I did touch you there. So what? If you didn't touch me there, would I touch you there? I flicked it, and your mucous membrane came out and stuck to my skin. Can you blame me for that?" Was he blaming her? You're good. If there's a next time, I'll glue your finger off. Lon Ji returned to her bed angrily. Just as she got under the quilt, a paper airplane made of 1,000 Blue Moon coins flew onto her quilt. She grabbed the paper plane and asked in surprise and nervousness, "What do you want to do?" "Don't let your imagination run wild. Even if you give me 1,000, I won't sleep with you. I don't want to become a eunuch." Charlotte said calmly, "I'll buy an answer. Tell me, when you are Akimis do that kind of thing, has a woman ever accidentally broken a man's penis?" Go to hell. A blue haze appeared on Lon Ji-er's face. Another $1,000 paper airplane landed on her perky breasts. She hesitated for a moment. Of course, there won't be such an accident, but there's no example of an Akimis woman doing it with a human, so I don't know if it will happen. However, when we Ashimis women are in danger, our immune system will instinctively activate this innate ability to protect our chastity. But if the Akimis woman truly likes you, I don't think she will, because even the mucous membranes have differences in strength. Just like muscles, there are times when they are normal, and there are times when they can exert force. So that's how it is. Charlotte had a look of realization. Just like a woman's thigh, it feels hard when exerting force, and soft when not exerting force. Is that what you mean? The mucous membranes of you Akimis women are like lubricant when not being attacked, and superglue when attacked, right? A pervert is a pervert. I curse you to be impotent for the rest of your life. Ha! Go to sleep. I still have things to do tomorrow. Charlotte closed his eyes. It felt good to tease the princess of the ancient royal family of the Archimedes Empire. Longi, muttered under her quilt, as if she was using an ancient language to curse the man lying on her bed to be impotent for the rest of his life. There was a light drizzle in the early morning. After the rain stopped, the entire Mount Archimedes was shrouded in a thick fog. The light and heat of the eternal sun could not disperse the fog, and visibility in the tribe was very low. However, this did not affect Charlotte's movements. In the forest of rest, his vision could easily penetrate the fog that permeated the forest. Charlotte walked in the tribe. Although it seemed like he was strolling, he was actually using the power of branding to capture the brainwaves of the Archimedes people and gather the information he wanted. The ability to resist the power of branding was only possessed by the ancient royal family of the Archimedes Empire, and not every descendant of the royal family had it. They also had to satisfy the awakening of their bloodline. They both had the bloodline of the ancient royal family of the Archimedes Empire, but Longier's father did not have the same ability as Longier. This was the result of Charlotte's probing last night, and it was also of very strong evidence. Under such circumstances, Xiao Lei could unscrupulously release the energy field of his branding power in the Archimedes tribe to gather the information he wanted. He was making preparations to enter the temple at the top of the mountain to steal the spirit ore. Longi and Longi were also making preparations. The father and daughter went to the cave workshop early in the morning and made the tools that Charlotte wanted according to the list he had given him. There were also some materials that the father and daughter found very strange. Before they knew it, they had arrived at the Sky Square. Many Archimedes crossed the square and walked towards the Sky Temple. Charlotte also followed the crowd to the Sky Temple. He wanted to go in and have a look. There were already many people in the Sky Temple. Every time it rained, the Archimedes would worship the Sky God. The light drizzle in the morning was the reason why the Archimedes had come to the Sky Temple early in the morning. More Archimedes meant more information and more opportunities to obtain information. Charlotte mixed in the crowd of Archimedes and arrived at the Sky Temple where the Sky God was worshipped. It was a very majestic hall. The circular dome was painted with blue and black paint, and a picture of a starry sky was painted on it. Stars, planets, nebulae, it was vast and boundless. Under the dome, the ground of the Sky Temple was also painted with a star map. The stars, planets, and nebulae were also vast and boundless. However, the strange thing was that Charlotte soon discovered that the star map in the sky corresponded to the star map on the ground. The upper and lower halves of a ball combined to form an elliptical sphere. Could it be that the Archimedes have painted the entire starry sky of the universe in this temple? Charlotte was immediately attracted by it and was very surprised. Humans had never stopped exploring the universe. Their desire to unravel the mysteries of the universe had always been very strong, but no one had ever been able to draw a complete map of the universe. If the elliptical star map drawn by the Archimedes was the complete map of the universe, then how did they do it? Mr. Xia, what are you doing here? A clear and melodious voice came from behind him. Charlotte moved his gaze away from the dome of the temple and looked back. He then saw a gentle and beautiful face. Standing behind him was the woman who sang last night, Polisai. She was the largest Archimedes woman he had ever seen. He smiled. Hello, Miss Polisai. Polisai also had a friendly smile on her lips. This place is where we worship the god of the sky. You shouldn't be here. If the people in the council find out, they will not be happy. She lowered her voice. You should leave this place before they find you. Thank you. Charlotte smiled. I am now considered an Archimedes. I also believe in the god of the sky, so I came here. Before Charlotte could finish his sentence, a voice interrupted him. Who admitted that you are an Archimedes? Charlotte looked in the direction of the voice and saw Armagang. There were a few strong Archimedes hunters behind Armagang, and those hunters were also staring at Charlotte with unfriendly eyes. Last night, Charlotte had completely defeated their leader in the Sky Square, which was also a disgrace to them. Armagang was surrounded by a few hunters as he walked toward Charlotte aggressively. Xiaolei just looked at Armagang indifferently, looking very calm. Policy, on the other hand, was a little nervous. She was obviously not good at controlling her emotions. She could not hide the hatred in her heart for Armagang, but she was afraid that Armagang would see through it. Charlotte said softly, "Go behind me." Policy looked at Charlotte gratefully and then walked behind Charlotte. Armagang stopped in front of Charlotte and looked at Charlotte coldly. "Even if you marry Langier, you can't become an Ahemus. You humans are just food for the Blue Moon people. You should go back to your place and not stay here." Charlotte said calmly, "I can go wherever I want, and I can stay wherever I want. This is my private matter, and it has nothing to do with you." Armagang snorted coldly, and his eyes suddenly moved to Policy, who was behind Charlotte. "Policy, don't you feel ashamed? Brother Gaia is dead, and you're already seducing another man, and a human at that. You nonsense," Policy said angrily. Gaia was... Armagang suddenly reached out to grab Policy. Charlotte raised his hand and blocked Armagang's hand. A few hunters rushed toward Charlotte. "Stop! What are you trying to do? This is the Sky Temple. Any blasphemy will be punished." Uriah walked out from the crowd, his face full of anger. Behind him were a few tribal warriors wearing Taisha armor. They were all older than Armagang. The oldest one looked to be in his early 50s, and his hair stood up as if he had just been struck by lightning. He was the most impressive. His body was also the most muscular among the warriors. His arms were thicker than Charlotte's thighs, and they contained terrifying strength. Was Armagang the strongest warrior in the Akemis tribe? After seeing this old warrior, Charlotte did not think so. Armagang bowed slightly to the old warrior and greeted him with a voice full of respect. "Captain Serene." He was the captain of the Akemis tribe's warrior group and the leader of the Akemis tribe's armed forces. Although it was only a captain, his position was the same as Contanana's in the resistance army. Serene also nodded slightly at Armagang and then looked at Charlotte. "Come with me." "Where to?" Charlotte asked. Armagang said fiercely, "I told you to go, so go. Why are you asking so many questions?" Charlotte shrugged. "I just want to know where I should go. Someone has to tell me, right?" Uriah said to Charlotte, "The council." Charlotte nodded. "Please lead the way." Serene turned around and left. Xiaolei followed the warriors of the tribe. Uriah said to Policy, "Go to the council court and receive the punishment you deserve." Policy suddenly became nervous, and his eyes were full of grievance. Uriah glared at Policy, his eyes cold. Policy bit his lip, lowered his head, and left. Chapter 1407. Walking out of the heavenly temple, Serene still did not say where he was going, but he was walking towards the even more majestic heavenly temple at the top of the mountain. Charlotte followed Serene and thought to himself, "Isn't that a forbidden place? Why is he bringing me to the heavenly temple at the top of the mountain? Is he setting me up? If that's the case, how should I deal with it?" Entering the heavenly temple at the top of the mountain to take a look and familiarize himself with the environment would be very helpful for his plan to steal the spiritual, or he also wanted to go in and take a look. However, he did not think that this was a good opportunity. The warriors of the Asamis tribe and Counselor Ula obviously had ill intentions towards him. How could they possibly invite him to visit the Temple of Sky at the top of the mountain? If it was not a good thing, then it must be a bad thing. As expected, Serene kept walking towards the top of the mountain. A few warriors who were following closely behind Xiaolei intentionally or unintentionally slowed down and fell behind Xiaolei. This way, Charlotte was sandwiched between Serene and the warriors. As they continued to walk, there were fewer and fewer people. Finally, there was no one else on the road. In a narrow section of the road, Alma quietly pulled out a short knife made of bone from his waist. Then he quietly approached Charlotte from behind. The warriors in front of him all made way for him. Xiaolei didn't seem to notice what was happening behind him. He continued walking forward and said, "Captain Serene, we've been walking for so long. Where are you taking me? I know that the heavenly temple at the top of the mountain is a forbidden place. You're not taking me there, are you?" Serene stopped and looked back at Charlotte. but he still did not say anything. He looked at the caller ID, then turned back and continued walking towards the top of the mountain. He had obviously seen what was happening behind Xiaolei. Amma was approaching Xiaolei with a short bone knife in hand, but he pretended not to see it, and he didn't stop him. Serei's reaction was a tacit agreement. Charlotte's lips curled into a cold smile. As soon as Ammar approached Charlotte, he suddenly thrust the bone knife in his hand at Charlotte's back. He used all the strength in his body for this slash. The muscles in his arms instantly bulged, and they were as hard as a discus. In the blink of an eye, the bone dagger stabbed into Xiaolei's back. At that moment, Xiaolei suddenly took a step to the side, avoiding the bone dagger and reaching out to grab Armagang's right wrist that was holding the dagger. Then, he took a step back and entered Armagang's chest. He exerted strength in his shoulders and waist at the same time and threw Armagang over his shoulder. Bang! Armagang's back landed heavily on the ground, causing mud to splatter everywhere. Charlotte stepped on Ma Gang's right shoulder and grabbed Ma Gang's right wrist with both hands. Then he suddenly exerted force, and his whole body suddenly spun in the opposite direction. Kacha! Armagang screamed. This time, he could no longer endure the pain. His shoulder joint had been twisted by Charlotte. Charlotte let go of Armagang's right arm. Armagang's right arm lost control and drooped weakly. A few tribal warriors rushed forward and stood. Boom! A tribal warrior was kicked into the air by Charlotte. Charlotte's eyes instantly turned black. The power of the brand was quietly released, covering an area of 100 square meters. If he wanted to, he could eat these tribal warriors at any time. Stop! Serene roared angrily. A few tribal warriors also stopped their attacks. Charlotte's eyes also returned to normal. He thought that because the time was too short, the dark state just now was just an illusion. The tribal warriors stopped their attacks. Charlotte did not attack either. Captain Serene, I want to kill him, Armagang said angrily. Serene said coldly, Don't you feel ashamed? You were knocked unconscious during the battle, and your arm was cut off for a sneak attack. If you think you can still kill him, then do it. Armagang looked at Charlotte hatefully, but he did not have the courage to pick up his knife and kill Charlotte. You're very strong, Serene said. We Ahemus respect the strong. I've heard of your story with Langia. I'm not against this kind of love that crosses races. If you're willing, as long as you pass my test, you can become one of our warriors and receive the same glory as us. Charlotte asked tentatively, What kind of test? Serene said, There's a blue titan on the road leading to the center of the Forest of Rest on our east side. If you can kill it and make that road safe, you'll pass the test. I'll personally give you the title of warrior. Blue Titan, ranked second among the Forest of Rest's 4 great beasts. This was not a test, but killing with a borrowed knife. Charlotte looked very hesitant. Uriah Egamon, Mr. Xia, Langier is the flower of our tribe. Even our warrior Armagang is in love with her. Since you've obtained our tribe's flower, you should take out a decent betrothal gift, right? As long as you kill that blue titan and clear that road, you'll be the strongest warrior in our tribe. Only then will you be worthy of our tribe's flower. Only cowards will fear the warrior's test. A warrior said, Humans have always been cowards. Otherwise, why would they hide underground? They're like rats. A warrior said, How could Charlotte not know that these warriors were colluding to trick him? However, he pretended to be agitated and said angrily, What did you say? Be a bit more polite. Did I say anything bad about it? I'm going. Isn't it just a blue dragon? I'll get rid of it and prove to you that I'm worthy of Langier. I'll also become a respected warrior. Good. I like your courage. Serene raised a big hand. High five. The eyes of the sky god can see that this is our warrior's promise. Charlotte also reached out a hand and clapped with Serene's. Serene's hand suddenly grabbed Charlotte's. His hand was about the size of Charlotte's 2 palms combined. He grabbed Charlotte's hand like a strong man grabbing a child's hand. Xiaolei knew what he was going to do. With just a thought, a wave of branding power gathered on the right palm that was being held by Xiaolei. Serene suddenly exerted force, and the blue veins on his right arm swelled up like thick tree roots. Uriah's mouth curled into a cold smile. He was already imagining the scene of Charlotte's finger bones being crushed. The warriors obviously had the same fantasy as Uriah. They all looked at Charlotte with schadenfreude. However, the situation they were hoping for did not happen. Charlotte secretly exerted force. Under his palm, Sore's huge hand started to slowly change shape. The finger bones also made a crisp sound of being crushed. Sore's expression changed instantly. Before he decided to pressure Charlotte a little and use his power to intimidate Charlotte, he thought that Charlotte would not be able to compete with him. However, the truth was the opposite. As Charlotte exerted force, he felt more and more uncomfortable. He felt like he was holding an energy engine of the Blue Moon people. It was not something he could compete with at all. The blue on Sore's face deepened. It was caused by the exertion of force and the shame. It was actually very easy for Xiaolei to make him lose face. However, just as he was about to crush Sore's finger bones, he stopped exerting force and maintained the power struggle between the two of them in a stalemate. He had to save some face for Sore. Besides, he had another plan. A trace of imprint energy with a spiritual command entered Sore's palm and entered his blood vessels. From there, it entered his brain. The process seemed complicated, but from start to finish, it only took a breath's time. Charlotte let go of Sore's hand and pretended to shake it a few times. "Aha, Captain Sore, you are so strong. You almost crushed my hand." Sore smiled awkwardly and blurted out, "You're quite strong, too. I like you. I'd like to invite you to the Sky Temple at the top of the mountain to have a look. Do you want to go?" "Of course I want to go. I want to express my highest respect to the Sky God." Charlotte copied Lan Ji-er's actions. He knelt on a muddy ground and mumbled something. He looked like a devout believer. After inviting Charlotte, Sore shook his head slightly. Uriah moved closer to Sore. "Captain Sore, that place is forbidden. Why did you invite a human kid there? The council won't be happy if they find out." Sore frowned. "Don't use those guys from the council to pressure me. So what if I invited him? He is the future warrior who wants to get rid of that blue titan. For the sake of that blue titan, forget it. Let's go." After all, he was not a meticulous person. He was just a crude warrior. Xiaolei had already obtained a piece of information from his unfinished sentence, which was that the Chima's tribe had already lost quite a number of people in order to get rid of that Lantan. Now that Sore and Uriah had set him up as cannon fodder, why would he let them do what they wanted? His goal was only that spiritual, or he had implanted a spiritual command into Sore to invite him to the Sky Temple at the top of the mountain. After the spiritual command took effect, Sore was actually a little confused. However, Uriah had used the council to pressure him. With his bad temper, he would not change his mind just because of a threat from Uriah. "Then let's go." Charlotte got up from the ground. "Follow me." Sore led the way to the top of the mountain. Uriah snorted coldly and gave Armagang a look. Armagang nodded in understanding and led the hunters down the mountain. Charlotte pretended not to care and followed Sore. He knew the thoughts of these Chimas better than they knew, because he had been secretly capturing their brain waves on the way up the mountain. These Ahimas, including Sore, actually wanted to kill him. However, after he subdued Armagang in an instant, Sore changed his mind and decided to use him as cannon fodder. Of course, Sore had the feeling of foresight, using a foreign race that he was about to kill in exchange for benefits for the Chima's tribe. However, he could never imagine what kind of existence he was plotting against. Even in the Blue Moon, only invincible people like Isitabu or Kasha Ruiz could kill Charlotte. The Chimas in the Chima's tribe did not even need to think about it. The higher the status of the Chimas, the more discrimination they have against a human like me. They really don't give up on killing me. If I could be killed so easily, you primitive people wouldn't have a chance, right? Damn it, when I find the answer I want and steal your spiritual, or I'll settle the score with those who want to kill me, Charlotte thought to himself. Passing by a stone tablet with a warning sign, Charlotte glanced at the other side of the mountain. However, he did not see the wooden door that said, Blue Wood's Father's Workshop. Trespassers will be fined $500. Although he was unwilling, Charlotte had to admit that Bluewood's father and Lonja were his allies in this tribe. Chapter 1408. The temperature at the top of the mountain plummeted, and the ancient stone path was covered in white snow. Without the cover of the vegetation, the heavenly temple at the top of the mountain looked especially majestic. The door to the heavenly temple was at least 10 meters tall, made of wood and copper, and looked especially old. Charlotte's gaze penetrated the wooden door, but at that moment, his vision was like a drop of water entering the sea, absorbed. He saw darkness, and there was nothing but darkness. Charlotte was shocked. What's with this heavenly temple? I don't feel any energy barrier at all, but why can't I see what's inside? If this Sky Temple and Sky City have the same confinement power, then this place is a dangerous place for me. The greatest guarantee for his survival in the Chimiz tribe was his branding power. If the Sky Temple in front of him was a forbidden area for branding power, then this place would be a slap in the face to him and a very dangerous place. Not going in seemed to be the wisest choice. He could imagine that the spirit or that contained information about the stone hunting plan, or even the fragment of the world box, was in this heavenly temple in front of him. His desire to go in and take a look was still strong. How can you catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? Mr. Xia, take off your weapon, Uriah said. This is our sacred land. No one is allowed to bring weapons in. Charlotte nodded, then took off his weapon and handed it to Uriah. One was an energy pistol from the Blue Moon people, one was a stiletto made from a Taisha's leg bone, and one was an alloy sword. Uriah laughed coldly. You sure have a lot of weapons. Charlotte said, Is this considered a lot? I haven't brought my bow. I'm best at archery. I can kill a Taisha with one arrow. Even a blue dragon can't stop my bow. Uriah snorted. He obviously thought that Charlotte was bragging. Saray said, Mr. Xia, I hope you can use your bow to kill that blue titan. Charlotte's face revealed a simple and honest smile. Captain Saray, leave it to me. I will definitely kill that blue tank and become a respected warrior like you. Well said. Come with me. Saray pushed open the huge bronze and wood door. G-A-G-A-J. The door opened slowly, and the wind blew in along with the snowflakes. The white snowflakes fell on the black stone floor. The snowflakes melted instantly, but the melted water disappeared on the black slate. When Charlotte saw those stone slabs, his footsteps paused slightly. Those stone slabs were exactly the same as the faceless warrior statue he had seen on Earth. Charlotte still walked in. Upon entering the main hall, Charlotte realized that every stone used to build the heavenly temple was made of the same black ore. No wonder he couldn't see through the inside of the temple just now. This kind of ore was proven to be able to absorb his X-ray vision on Earth. It could also affect the exertion of his branding power and even cause him to hallucinate. Fortunately, it was only interference and not imprisonment. Otherwise, this place would really become his forbidden area. There were some stone statues on the walls on both sides of the main hall. Those stone statues are the images of Ahemus. Some were old, some were young. They looked like ordinary Ahemus. These are the statues of the warriors who sacrificed their lives for the tribe. They are the greatest builders and defenders of the tribe. Only the warriors who have made great contributions to the tribe are qualified to enter the Hall of Martyrs after they die, Saray said. Charlotte bowed slightly to the stone statues on both sides to show his respect. Mr. Xia, if you kill that blue titan, you can also enter this Hall of Heroes after you die, Uriah said sinisterly. Charlotte smiled. That would be my greatest honor. After visiting the Hall of Heroes, Saray brought Charlotte to a few other places. However, they were all insignificant places. He didn't bring Charlotte to the important places at all. Finally, Saray and Uriah brought Charlotte to a training hall for the temple guards. There were about 100 temple guards training in the hall. Along the way, Charlotte saw temple guards in many places. They were all carefully selected warriors of the tribe. Needless to say, the guards of the Heavenly Temple were also the guards of the Ahemus tribe. These guards didn't need to participate in labor or hunting. They trained every day. Their fighting strength was much stronger than ordinary warriors of the tribe. When Saray and Uriah brought Charlotte into the training hall, the temple guards all stopped training and looked at Charlotte. Then there were some whispers. A human kid. Why is he here? How dare he? Don't you know? I heard that this kid is Lanji, Ur's lover from outside the Anchi forest. He must be a gigolo. Lanji is really a shameless woman. I always thought that she would be with my good brother Amagang. I didn't expect her to hook up with a human kid. How disgusting. Don't look down on this human kid. I heard that he defeated Amagang last night. I also heard that Amagang lost miserably. Langier is such a smart woman. How could she fall for an ordinary human kid? I bet this human kid is not simple. In the midst of the discussion, Saray raised his hand. The noisy scene immediately quieted down. Saray walked to the weapon rack where the bows and arrows were displayed. He took down a bow and bow and threw it to Charlotte. Mr. Xia, you said that your bow and arrows are very powerful. Then try my bow. Charlotte caught the bone bow that Saray threw to him. He first weighed it in his hand before saying, "The workmanship is not bad. What do you want to shoot?" "The workmanship is not bad?" Saray said, "This is the rib of the Tai Sha King, and also our strongest bow here. If you can use it to hit the target, I'll lend it to you to kill that Lantan." Charlotte took an arrow and walked toward the place where the arrow was shot. What kind of joke is this? That's the leader's Tai Sha King bow. We can only barely pull it, let alone use it to shoot an arrow. I've been here for so long, and I've only seen the leader use it to shoot a target. Isn't that human kid too arrogant? Our leader is our tribe's sharpshooter. That kid boasted that his bow and arrows are powerful. The leader will definitely test his strength. Humph. Let's just wait and see. I bet that kid can only pull a bow for half a year at most. Amidst the disdainful discussion, Charlotte took half a step forward and bent his waist to draw the bow. The speed at which he drew the bow was very slow, as if it was very strenuous. I knew it would be like this. I bet he won't be able to do it soon. Why would Lanjier like this kid? I'm afraid he won't be able to last 20 hits on Lanjier's stomach, right? I think he'll be done with 10 hits. I feel bad for Lanjier. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking rang out in the training hall. All the discussion stopped abruptly. The huge training hall was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Charlotte had failed. He didn't hit the bullseye. However, his failure had absolutely nothing to do with his archery skills. It was because the Tai Sha King bow in his hand had broken. No one could hit a target with a broken bow, not even a sharpshooter who could shoot with great accuracy. Sorry. Charlotte looked apologetic. Leader Saray, I'm really sorry. I used too much strength and accidentally broke your bow. When I go back, I'll get my father-in-law to make a bow for you as compensation. Saray then regained his senses. There's no need. I don't plan on using it anyway, because it already has a crack. He was actually very distressed, and there were no cracks on the bow. If he didn't say that, what else could he say? Charlotte heaved a sigh of relief. If that's the case, that's great. You guys know that my father-in-law is a money grubber. If he knows that I broke your bow and still have to compensate you, he'll definitely reprimand me. The training hall was instantly filled with laughter. To them, this human kid in front of them wasn't a scary guy. In fact, he was a funny guy who was innocent and cute. While the temple guards were laughing, Charlotte was also secretly laughing in his heart. He had made himself a fool. So how could these people be on guard against him? Ouch! Charlotte suddenly held his stomach. My stomach hurts. It's all because that silly girl on he didn't roast the meat for me. I need to go to the toilet. Can someone tell me where the toilet is? Ouch, ouch. Ha ha ha. Human brat. Can't you just shit in your pants? Said one of the temple guards with a chuckle. Charlotte revealed a pained expression. If that's the case, that silly girl on I definitely won't let me sleep with her. Did anyone tell me? If no one told me, I'll go look for it myself. Human kid, it's on your right. Walk right out of the door. You'll see the toilet in about 200 steps. But can you hold on until you get there? Ha ha. Amidst the roars of laughter, Xia Lei clutched his stomach and ran in the direction the temple guard had pointed. Uriah stared at Charlotte's back. There was a trace of disdain in his eyes, but more of it was suspicion. Serene laughed. This guy is simply the ideal cannon fodder. Let him kill that blue tank. When he and that blue tank are both injured, we'll appear and kill him and that blue tank. Uriah said, I hope your plan succeeds. I don't know why, but I feel that this guy is very strange. I can't see through him. Serene said disdainfully, he's just a silly kid. What do you see through him? Ha ha ha. Uriah snorted coldly, but he didn't argue with Serene anymore. Serene said, Counselor Uriah, what are you still doing here? Go to the council and tell those high and mighty counselors to approve my action. I need to move as soon as possible. You'll get what you want. Uriah left this sentence and turned to leave. Outside the training hall, Charlotte had already deviated from the route to the toilet. Although it was his first time here, Longer and Old Man Lon Mu had already provided him with no less than 20 maps of this temple. Not to mention the temple at the center of the temple that stored the spirit ores. He knew exactly how many toilets there were in the temple and where they were located. After passing through a corridor, the temple at the center of the temple that stored the spirit ores entered Charlotte's sight. However, this was the end of his adventurous behavior. Around the mountain, there was a temple guard every 10 steps. Not only were the temple guards equipped with the special cold weapons of the Archimedes tribe, but they were also equipped with the energy weapons of the Blue Moon people. The security was tight. If he forced his way closer, he would definitely be discovered. He didn't know the situation inside the temple at the center, and there was already a magnetic field that interfered with his branding power. If he rashly used the branding power to control the brains of the temple guards, he didn't have a 100% chance of success, and he couldn't bear the consequences of failure. After weighing the pros and cons, he finally gave up on the tempting idea of entering the temple to take a look or even steal the spirit ores. However, Charlotte wasn't willing to do nothing. After hesitating for a while, Charlotte activated his X-ray vision and directed his gaze straight to the door of the temple at the center. Boom! His X-ray vision instantly penetrated the bronze door, and in that instant he felt like he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. There was no light, no sound, only continuous falling. The temple at the center was like a quagmire, and he was the unlucky guy who accidentally fell into the quagmire. He didn't see the spirit ores, and he didn't even see the situation inside the temple at the center. However, when he wanted to end it, he couldn't get out of the endless darkness. He was trapped just like that. Strange. Chapter 1409. A light appeared in the darkness, and then the world suddenly lit up. Facing the light, Charlotte saw a lush green mountain top and a tree nearby. A bird was chirping on a branch. The chirping was crisp and sweet, bringing a sense of natural intimacy and tranquility. Hubby, you're awake. You lazy bum, only waking up when the sun is shining on your butt. A woman's voice came from behind him. The scenery swayed, and a gentle and beautiful face entered Charlotte's line of sight. It was Liang Xiao, one of his beloved wives. She had a charming smile on her face, and her figure was not out of shape at all. She was still as sexy and attractive as ever. Behind her was a door. Through that door, one could see the corner of Ping and Residence and the office building of Rema Group. A red flag was fluttering on the roof of the building, bringing with it the power to go up. Charlotte felt that something was wrong, but he could not see any flaws. Liang Xiao walked over and suddenly pressed down on him. Then she used her hand to grab his ear and pretended to twist it. She coquettishly said, "You were supposed to sleep with me last night. Why did you run over to Yu Yan's place?" Her chest was soft against his chest, her breath was on his face, and her signature long legs were wrapped around his waist. Everything felt so real, so comfortable. I felt like I had a dream and went to another world, and I can't come back. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, she suddenly held his mouth. In the next second, her lilac tongue pried, opened his teeth, and tangled with his tongue. Her kissing technique was still so skilled. In just a few breaths, she had already ignited his flame. He turned over and pressed her under his body. He impatiently pulled down her jeans, but he could not untie her belt no matter how hard he tried. "What are you guys doing so early in the morning? Don't you have any shame?" Tang Yuyin suddenly walked out of the bathroom. She was wrapped in a bath towel, revealing a large patch of her snow-white skin. Her body was curvy and sexy. Charlotte smiled and said, "Come here, let's sleep again." "Sleep your head. I still have to go to school." Tang Yuyin said, "Our children are all in school?" Charlotte was stunned on the spot. "Kindergarten. Our children are so smart. They must be sent to preschool early," Tang Yuyin said. At this moment, a few other women walked in. Long Bing, Fan Fan, Jiang Rui, and Shinda Tianyin. They hadn't changed at all. They were still as sexy and charming as ever. He looked at them, and his heart was filled with endless love and affection. The corners of his eyes couldn't help but moisten, and tears were about to fall. Long Bing walked over with a smile and slapped his butt. "You're so useless. You can't even take off Xiao's pants. Let me help you." And Charlotte nodded. Liang Xiao looked fierce. "If you dare take off my pants, I'll take off your pants." Suddenly, the children's voices came from outside the door. In the blink of an eye, a few children ran in. There was Liang Jiayu, born to him, and Liang Xiao, Xiaolong, born to him, and Long Bing, Xiaofan, born to him, and Fan Fan, Xia Zhanghe, born to him, and Zhang Rui, Xia Tavong, born to him, and Tang Yuyin, and Xiaoyang and Xiaoyu, born to him, and Shinda Tianyin. "Daddy, Daddy." The children rushed over, boom. The wives disappeared, and so did the children. All the illusions disappeared in an instant. His beloved wife and adorable children were gone, and he could no longer see them. All of this was because of a voice. That voice said to him, "You should wake up." Then he woke up. However, even this voice didn't exist in reality. There was no one around him. The voice appeared in the depths of his consciousness, as if he was talking to himself. Did I wake myself up? Such a question popped up in Charlotte's mind. He thought about it, but he had no clue. The mysterious central temple came into his sight again, as well as the mighty and majestic temple guards of the Zymus tribe. The temple guards didn't notice him, and they didn't react to what had just happened. Charlotte completely dispelled all the improper thoughts in his mind. He turned around and left without hesitation. That piece of spiritual ore was very important to the Zymus people. It was not only their spiritual sustenance, but also the continuation of the stone hunting plan. If it was so easy to steal, how could Lan Mu's father and Lan Zhe have spent 15 years without success? It seemed that stealing that piece of spiritual ore required a thorough plan. He couldn't be too hasty. Charlotte went straight to the toilet. When he came out of the toilet, Saray and a few temple guards were standing in the corridor leading to the toilet, staring at him. Their eyes were full of vigilance and suspicion. Charlotte was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "What are you doing? Are you lining up?" "No need, there are still many seats inside." Saray said, "What took you so long?" Charlotte said, "I went the wrong way just now. I went around in a circle to find this place." This was the most reasonable explanation. He couldn't be sure if anyone saw where he went. If he lied, the lie would be easily exposed, and it would arouse the suspicion of Saray and the temple guards. The risk of telling the truth was far less than the risk of lying, so why not tell the truth? Sure enough, after hearing Charlotte's explanation, the suspicion in Saray's eyes disappeared. "Mr. Xia, you can't walk around this place casually. You should go back first. I'll inform you when the council has made a decision." Charlotte nodded. "No problem. I can leave any time." "Very well, then it's settled. You can go back first," Saray said. "Goodbye, Captain Saray." "Goodbye, warriors." Charlotte said goodbye to Saray and the temple guards politely. No one paid attention to him. The temple guards just watched him leave. One interesting guy. "Silly," a captain of the temple guards said. "Lan Zhe is going to be a widow soon," a temple guard said. "Ha ha, if that's the case, I'll have a chance." A temple guard had a smirk on his face. These words entered Charlotte's ears without missing a word, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. "You want me to be cannon fodder? Then let's see who's cannon fodder." After leaving the Sky Temple at the top of the mountain, Charlotte passed by the stone tablet and turned around to go to Lon Moo's father's cave workshop. The door of the cave workshop was closed. After using his X-ray vision, Charlotte found no one inside, so he left. Back at Lon Juror's house, Charlotte still didn't see Lon Moo's father and Lon Jin. Charlotte felt strange. Didn't they say they were going to prepare for the operation? Where did those two guys run off to? Did they run away because they were worried that their identity would be exposed? That's unlikely. Lon Moo's father and Lon Juror's goal is that spirit ore. The father and daughter have been lurking here for 15 years. They won't give up just like that. After staying in Lon Juror's room for a while, Charlotte left Lon Juror's treehouse and went to Polisai's treehouse. He wanted to ask Polisai about Lon Moo's father and Lon Juror. Besides, he was a little worried about her and wanted to see her. The doors and windows of Polisai's treehouse were closed, but there were rustling sounds coming from the house. Obviously, someone was inside. Charlotte reached out and knocked on the door. "Ms. Polisai, are you at home?" Polisai's voice came from the treehouse. "No, I'm here. What's the matter?" She recognized Charlotte's voice. There was a sobbing tone in her voice. When Charlotte left the Sky Temple on the mountainside, Uriah told her to go to the council to receive her punishment. Her current reaction was obviously related to that. Charlotte was even more worried. He couldn't help but awaken his X-ray vision. His vision entered Polisai's treehouse without any resistance. He was stunned when he saw her, and a ball of anger rose in his heart. Polisai was bare-chested, and her blue and black striped back was full of whipping scars. The person who had whipped her was extremely ruthless. Every whip mark was lacerated, and it was a shocking sight. She was holding a steaming towel in her hand. The towel and a water basin next to it were filled with blue blood. She was sitting with her side facing the door. The two MT Lon Everest towered out from her chest. They were majestic in size and weight, but they didn't feel like they were falling at all. They were still firm, giving people a stunning sense of beauty and temptation. Under the two MT Lon Everest were slender waists and soft, flat abdomen. The blue navel was exquisite and cute. She was only wearing a thin pair of white shorts. The seams were very wide, and one could vaguely see the tempting shape and scenery. A blue-black buttocks filled the thin fabric. It was round and plump, and people couldn't help but fantasize about it. A beautiful and sexy woman was being bullied. What better way to awaken a man's desire to protect her? Charlotte didn't even bother to ask. He pushed the door open and walked in. "You?" Polisai hurriedly reached out to cover her chest and said nervously, What are you doing? Get out, or I'll call for help." Charlotte snatched the blood-stained towel from her hand and threw it into the basin of hot water. He washed it and picked it up to clean the wound on her back. He didn't answer, but that was his answer. "You go out. This isn't good." Polisai seemed very flustered. Only then did Charlotte say, "Can you clean the wound on your back by yourself? Can you apply the medicine yourself? Let me help you. You need help." But Polisai covered her chest even more tightly, but because of the size, she couldn't cover it all at all. At least half of it was always exposed. Charlotte cleaned her wound and said, "We humans have a saying. Sick people don't hide from doctors. This saying means that sick people shouldn't hide their bodies from doctors. I just want to help you. I don't mean anything else." "Do you mean for me to put my hand down?" "I don't mean that. I mean," Charlotte didn't know how to explain, so he changed the topic. "Who hit you?" "The council's executioner," Polisai said. "Why did he hit you?" Charlotte couldn't help but curse. "Damn, he's really ruthless. I'm a widow. I can't be intimate with other men, let alone a human, so they punished me." Polisai bit her lower lip. Her blue lips and white teeth were a very sexy color combination. "You have such a rule here?" Charlotte asked casually, but his eyes moved to the elastic band of her shorts. A whip mark extended from her waist to her buttocks. Some blue blood seeped out of the fabric and stuck her skin to the fabric. Should he treat this wound? Chapter 14:10. Pain and Sadness. Polisai finally couldn't hold back her tears. When 2 tears rolled down from her blue eyes, she cried out involuntarily. It was the kind of crying that suppressed her voice, sobbing and sniffling. It was a pitiful sight. Her cries amplified the anger in Charlotte's heart. "Tell me, who hit you? What are you doing?" Sob, sob. Before she could finish her sentence, Policy sobbed again. As she sobbed, the two Mount Everest trembled as if they would fall to the ground due to their weight at any time. "I want to help you vent your anger. Whoever hit you, I'll beat him up." No, I'm fine. This is the punishment I deserve." Sob, sob. Charlotte sighed. She was so kind, so cowardly, and so young and beautiful. Those stinky men in this tribe who wanted to touch her but didn't have the chance to bully her. Who else would they bully? "Mr. Xiai, you should go back. If Lan Jier finds out that you're here with me, and I'm like this, she'll be angry. Don't worry about her. She and I." Charlotte wanted to say the real relationship between him and Lan Jier, but he swallowed the words when they reached his mouth. "Did you quarrel with her?" "Yes, we quarreled." A bitter smile appeared on the corner of Charlotte's mouth. He and Lan Jier didn't just quarrel, they almost used knives and guns. Women need to be coaxed. You should coax her, don't quarrel with her. "Do you like her? Do you want to hear the truth?" "Of course." Charlotte washed the towel and continued to clean her wounds. Policy hesitated for a moment before saying, "I don't like her. She's very greedy for money. Once, when I was sick, I asked her to help me carry a bucket of water. She took my money." "Charlotte, Bluewood's father is also very greedy for money. No matter what he does, he needs money. It must be very difficult for you in that family, right?" Charlotte smiled. "Well, it's really not easy." As they chatted, the atmosphere between the two of them was no longer awkward. The tension and grievance in Policy's heart eased, and the distance between the two of them slowly shortened. The wound on his back was quickly cleaned. The remaining wound stretched from his waist to his buttocks. If he wanted to deal with it, he would have to pull down his shorts a little. This was a little inconvenient, but Charlotte hesitated for a moment before bringing it up. "You still have a wound on your buttocks. Do you need me to treat it?" Well, I'll do it myself. You help me to mix the ointment with water, and then apply it for me," said Policia. "All right, I'll help you with the ointment." Charlotte went to help her with the ointment. Policy pulled down the shorts himself and knelt on a cloth mat, with one hand on the ground and the other behind his back to clean the wound on his buttocks. Her movements were careful, but she still could not resist the stimulation of the pain. A little painful and suppressed moan came out of her little mouth. It was that painful and repressed moan that affected Xia Lei's already overflowing sympathy. He could not help but turn around to take a look, but it was that one look that made him suddenly stunned. He was also stimulated. Her kneeling posture, her bluish-black fat ball, her everything about her was right in front of his eyes. She did not hold back, did not cover up, and yet was still bashful. He was a normal man. The contact just now had already caused him a lot of trouble, and he had been trying very hard to endure it. Now, the stimulation suddenly doubled, and coupled with the mysterious temptation of the Akim's woman, at that moment, he could not suppress the impulse in his body. You turn around." Policy discovered that Charlotte was peeping. Her face turned blue in an instant, and the towel covered her important parts. Yes. Charlotte coughed dryly and turned back to the medicinal paste. His eyes were filled with mud, but his mind was full of other things. In those imaginations, the fabric of his pants became tighter and smaller. A rustling sound came from behind, and then Policy's shy voice, "I'm done, Mr. Xia. Help me apply the medicinal paste." Charlotte took a deep breath and walked over with a bowl of medicinal paste. Ouch! As soon as Charlotte's finger, which was dipped in the medicinal paste, fell on the first wound, Policy could not help but cry out in pain. "Does it hurt a lot?" "Bear with it, just bear with it." Charlotte comforted her. Policy bit her cherry lips and nodded. "You do it." Charlotte continued to apply the medicine on her. His movements were extremely gentle and meticulous. While he was trying his best to reduce Policy's pain, he secretly thought to himself, Lan Jier's body has the ability to quickly heal itself, but Policy obviously doesn't. Otherwise, why would she prepare the herbal paste? Lan Jier's rapid self-healing ability must have originated from her ancient bloodline. That ancient bloodline also gave her immunity to the power of the brand. That ancient royal family was really mysterious. The Ahemus Empire had gained the ability to colonize extraterrestrial planets more than 3,000 years ago. However, the Earth 3,000 years ago was still a slave society. The most advanced production tools were bronze wares, and most of them were even stone wares. How could such a powerful civilization be destroyed? What happened? Endless imagination, and he could not help but sigh. Mr. Xia, you might as well treat that wound as well. Polisai's voice was like a mosquito's, so soft that it could not be any softer. The blue blush on her cheeks did not fade. It was still so blue, like the color of the sea. Charlotte did not think at all and blurted out, "Okay." The blood-stained cloth was pulled down, and the blue and black ball was exposed to Charlotte's sight. His hand, that was applying the medicine, was trembling. "You like me, don't you?" At a very critical moment, Polisai suddenly said such a sentence. Huh? Charlotte was stunned, and his hand that was applying the medicine also stopped. Polisai suddenly turned to look at Charlotte with tears in her eyes. "You like me, otherwise you wouldn't be so good to me, right? After my man died, they avoided me like the plague. The people who used to respect me also began to insult and bully me, but you are very good to me. I have never met a man as gentle as you." Charlotte's head was buzzing, and his mind was also a mess. Did he like her? He actually did not know at all, and he did not even think about this question. The first time he got close to her was because he heard her singing and wanted to get some useful information from her. The second time he came into contact with her was a chance encounter at the Temple of the Sky. This was the third time. He sympathized with her, and he helped her apply the medicine. His body was indeed very impulsive because of some sensory stimuli, but this did not mean that he had the kind of feelings for her between a man and a woman. However, he had to admit that she was very tempting and attractive, and he also had a good impression of her. "If you like me, take me away from here." Polisai suddenly grabbed Charlotte's hand. "This place makes me sad. If I stay here, I will die. I don't want to stay here anymore. Will you take me away from here?" She asked Charlotte to help her apply the medicine in that place, which was actually a clear statement. When she made this decision, she had already prepared these words in her heart. Charlotte felt that it was too sudden, and he did not know how to answer her. Polisai's expression suddenly darkened. "So you are also a man who wants to take advantage of me. Go away. I don't need your help. Let's not meet again in the future." Charlotte smiled bitterly. Polisai interrupted him. "You made the right choice. I am a widow, a woman who is like a plague. My husband, Gaia, is a respected man. They blame me for his death, so they exclude me and torture me. But is that my fault? I told them that it was Amma who killed Gaia, but no one was willing to believe me. I don't have any nostalgia for this place anymore. I want to escape from here. Even if I fail and get burned to death by those fellows from the council, I'm not afraid." Her body was covered in scars, but her eyes were so determined. Charlotte grabbed her hand. "Believe me, I'm not the kind of man who wants to take advantage of you. If you want to leave here, I will help you. In a few days, they will ask me to kill a Lantan. I will say that I need a helper, and I will take you away from here." "Kill Lantan? No. If you don't go, it's because they want you dead." She said that they didn't want to meet again, but when she heard that Charlotte was going to kill Lantan, she immediately became nervous and worried for him. Charlotte smiled. "I'm not the kind of man who will die so easily." Why are you helping me like this?" She looked straight at Charlotte, her eyes filled with anticipation, as if waiting for Charlotte to say the words she wanted to hear. Xiao Lei thought to himself, "I'll give this poor woman some hope. If I don't even have a reason, I'm afraid she won't accept my help. It's too dangerous for her to act alone." Thinking of this, a smile appeared on his face. "I'll answer the question you asked just now. I'll like you. Like you." It was just one sentence. It said a lot of meat, and it wouldn't kill anyone. To him, this was just a simple sentence. But to the pitiful woman in front of him who had been tormented by fate, it was very important. Because this would make her feel that he wasn't trying to take advantage of her by getting close to her and helping her, but that he really liked her. Her heart had already turned into a desert, and Charlotte's appearance, Charlotte's words, were a clear river. I knew it. Policy moaned, turned around, and threw herself into Charlotte's arms. Charlotte sighed in his heart. In this new world, he swore to manage his personal emotional problems. He could no longer be as flirtatious and promiscuous as he was on Earth. But he was the shining lamp. How could he avoid those moths flying to him? Wait for me, Policy said in Charlotte's ear. Charlotte was slightly stunned. What? Policy's eyes were tender and alluring. She gently bit Charlotte's shoulder. What do you think? Charlotte was speechless. We have to be careful. We can't let Langie find out. You can only come when she is not at home. When she is, we don't even say hello. Remember? Policy said. Charlotte did not know whether to laugh or cry. How did pure friendship develop into a secret love? Just then, footsteps suddenly came from below the treehouse. Charlotte looked down and suddenly said, It's Armagang and the hunting team. Put on your clothes. Policy suddenly became nervous. She did not think about how Charlotte knew it was Armagang. She hurriedly got up and went to the wardrobe to get some clothes to put on. Her previous clothes had been torn by the whip, and she could no longer wear them. Just as Policy put on her clothes, Armagang's voice came from outside the door. Sister Policy, open the door. Policy said with a trembling voice. Why do I need to open the door? It's not convenient for me now. You go. We can talk tomorrow. Armagang said coldly. Humph. What's the matter? I'm here for my brother Gaia's honor. My people saw him enter your house, and he hasn't come out yet. What do you think I'm here for? Don't tell me you two are still together and can't bear to be separated? He was here to catch them in the act. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.